The main character does not know the name of the city in which he works. He went down into the dark underground sewers of this city. After descending, the man turned on the flashlight and saw something covered with fur. The hero saw the lying animals and said that the rat poison was effective. The effectiveness of this poison is exactly the same as that of the one in the other world. After putting all the bodies in bags, the man went up the stairs and out of the musty sewer. After dragging the bags some distance away, he dropped them to the ground with a thud. He opened the bag and pulled out the demonic animal Mazmaskal. The man said that the guild registrar had told him that he would need proof to complete the task. The man cut off the tails of the Mazmaskals. After that, he put the creatures in bags. Picking up the bags, the hero said that he needed to burn the remains of these demons, but he did not possess fire magic. The man put the bags next to him and silently looked at the forest. Dark and huge trees surrounded him, creating an eerie atmosphere. Looking up, the hero thought that he had already heard stories about how young travelers, entering the forest, died at the hands of goblins or slugs. The man wasn't crazy enough to fight monsters. Picking up the bag, he said that the authorities were saying that it would be nice to leave the remains in the forest. The hero thought that monsters or some other creatures would take care of these remains. Swinging hard enough, he threw the bag straight into the dangerous forest. The man died in the last world and then ended up here. Thanks to his gaming skills, he was able to get used to it quickly. Turning away, he thought it was time to return. The man joined the Guild of Travelers and completed basic training. As it turned out, it was not adapted to a sword or staff. The travelers at the port hunted monsters while the heroes fought against the demon lords. Walking along a forest path, the man thought that both in this and in a previous life he lived by purifying and destroying all kinds of vile creatures. Last day, people were walking the streets, working and chatting carelessly with each other. In the ancient elven medicine of Chimera, an old elf examined the work and turned around, calling the man Nayaki. Elf said that the room looked like it had never had bugs in it. Nayaki thanked the elf for his kindness and explained that cleaning was also part of his job, in addition to destroying parasites. The old elf, satisfied with the work she had done, stretched out her hand and poured exactly 50 notes on it. Nayaki accepted the payment and thanked Chimera. Nayaki thought that even in another world, he still works as an exterminator. Nayaki passed by a couple of people who were chatting enthusiastically about something. Nayaki watched them go and noticed that one of them was carrying a large sword on his back. Raising his head to the sky, he remembered when he had just woken up in this world. Then, unfortunately, he did not receive any talents or abilities. Nayaki remembered that after entering this world, he decided to continue his existence. The man took out coins from his pocket and said that he needed more startup capital. Knots were the base currency. Nayaki wondered how these coins could be converted to yen. The man enthusiastically said that at the moment he needed to think not about this, but about finding a place to stay. Soon, Nayaki arrived at the Wanderers Guild, as well as the hotel. He entered the common room. Nayaki came over to report that he had completed Chimera's task of cleaning her house. The fox girl handed Nayaki the document with a smile and praised the man for his excellent work. Moving away from the counter, Nayaki thoughtfully squeezed his chin and wondered what he could do now. He went to the bulletin board, which had tasks on it such as kill goblins in the forest, kill all the slugs in the vicinity, help with magic experiments. But none of this suited Nayaki because he was not a traveler. He thought about renting a room and the remaining money. Suddenly, Nayaki was attracted by someone's indignant voice. Someone approached Irene and asked if she was seriously asking them to go to the sewer. It was a group of people who were standing next to Irene. She muttered that they could only take this assignment if they wanted to, because no one else wanted to take this assignment. The man said that it was not surprising. He slapped a piece of paper with a task about killing slugs on the table and told Irene that he was sorry, but they would still take this task with slugs. The girl was dejected and sighed in disappointment, lowering her head. Suddenly, Nayaki's voice was heard nearby, asking if an ordinary beginner could cope with this task about the sewer. She asked the man if his name was Nayaki, and he confirmed it. Handing him the sheet, she explained that this was the governor's task, which was to reduce the population of Mazmaskals in the sewers. Irene said that they pay little for this, only 5 knots per head of one creature. So the Mazmaskali are very fast and agile, so this task is not suitable for many people. Picking up the task sheet, Nayaki smiled. Irene went on to say that if the population of Mazmaskals was not reduced, they would start spreading infections throughout the city at the rate of a fire. The man said that he would take on this task. The girl jumped up from her seat. The man agreed. Finally, Irene was able to breathe a sigh of relief and thanked Nayaki from the bottom of her heart. The next day, Nayaki successfully completed his work. He threw the body bags into the woods and dusted off his hands with satisfaction. Nayaki happily said that with such money, his dream of his own place did not seem so far away to him. He decided that first he would need to buy the ingredients of mass-produced rat poison. Upon returning to the city, he immediately went to Chimera. There he wanted to buy all the poisonous appendages. The old elf said that she would give him everything for 100 notes. Naoki exclaimed that it was too much of a price. He begged Chimera for a discount. Seeing how Naoki desperately needed these poisonous appendages, Chimera told him to let her think. She replied to Naoki that she would give away the poisonous appendages for only 10 notes if Naoki would come to her and clean up. Naoki was delighted. The old elf was very confused. Then Naoki confusedly asked her what had happened and why she was blushing so much. Chimera came to her senses and jumped away from him, exclaiming that everything was fine and he could leave. After that, Naoki received the ingredients for the rat poison. Soon after, Naoki passed by the street shops and noticed that something was being sold on one of the counters. He called out to the merchant and asked him for something. After a couple of minutes, he brought out a whole basin of spoiled monster blood and fat for Naoki. He returned to the guild building right with that smelly basin. All the travelers were horrified by the bad smell. Irene jumped up to the man and began to loudly protest, asking Naoki what was going on and why it stank so much. The man explained that he needed this liquid for work, so he was thinking of doing this job here until he had his own home. She exclaimed that the smell was very annoying to her and asked Naoki if he could do it somewhere else. Naoki sighed because Irene was fussing so much about it. Naoki took all the ingredients to the guild's backyard. The man spread a cloth on the grass and put everything there. Naoki flexed his shoulder and finally decided to start creating rat poison. After a while, Naoki got about a dozen dark balls, which he spread out on the fabric. The rat poison, according to the secret recipe, was ready. Putting them in his bag, he said that these balls looked quite appetizing despite the fact that you can die after eating them. After collecting everything necessary for work, Naoki came to the entrance to the sewer. As he walked through the sewer tunnels, he carefully laid out poison balls on the floor. After quite a long time, the entire sewer was filled with these balls. The next morning, Naoki headed back to the sewers, wearing a hard hat and a mask covering his nose. When he got down, he turned on the flashlight and was stunned by what he saw. The entire stone floor of the sewer was littered with the lifeless bodies of Mazmascles, as well as half-eaten balls of poison. Naoki looked at this sight and breathed a sigh of relief, lowering his head because the rat poison worked perfectly. So he collected all the bodies of the Mazmascles in large bags. He cut off their tails to show them as proof, and threw the body bags themselves far into the dark and dangerous forest. After completing his work, Naoki went to the Travelers Guild and received a reward for the killed Mazmascles. Then he said goodbye to Irene. That afternoon, Naoki returned to the sewers to lay traps for the Mazmascles. Naoki returned to the sewer. There he found more bodies of Mazmascles and put his hands on his hips, getting ready to work again. As a result, this time he collected even more lifeless bodies of Mazmascles than last time. Just like last time, Naoki threw the bags into the forest. After completing the work, he turned around and headed to the city to hand over the work. Later, Irene jumped up in a daze and shouted at Naoki to stop and wait another minute. The man stopped and turned around, asking what was the matter. Irene sighed and explained that Naoki was destroying the Mazmascle population too quickly, which was why he was taking most of the funds to pay for tasks, so soon he would simply bankrupt them. She asked how many he had killed today. Naoki rubbed his chin thoughtfully and explained that he had stopped counting Mazmascles after the first 1,000, so he was not quite sure of the numbers. Irene was stunned. The man said that he was just working the way he normally works. He thought with regret that he had really added too much trouble to Irene and the others. Irene was a little surprised by this behavior of the man and said that the people in the department were very grateful to him. But still, he did his job too quickly. Naoki just wanted to open the huge door, but he broke it down. Upon witnessing this, all the travelers shuddered and jumped up from their seats. Naoki himself was surprised by what happened. The travelers pointed at Naoki. They shouted that it just couldn't be because the door was just huge. Irene froze in place with her mouth open. When she ran up to Naoki, he apologized to her. Irene turned to him and asked him to show her his traveler's card. Naoki understood what the girl was talking about and began to search in his pockets. The girl took the card in her hands and examined it carefully, and then suddenly opened her eyes in surprise. She explained to Naoki that when people level up, there are times when they accidentally break things because they are no longer able to control their increased strength. Then, Irene immediately shuddered and exclaimed that Naoki's traveler card said that he had already reached level 38. Irene exclaimed that it was simply impossible. Irene turned away and thoughtfully squeezed her chin, wondering, because a few days ago Naoki was only level 2. He told the girl that he threw the Mazmeskals, who were poisoned by his poison, into the forest so that other monsters would eat the Mazmeskals. She jumped up to Naoki, stunned, asking him if this meant that he was leveling up by simply throwing the bodies of the Mazmeskals into the forest. Finally, Irene calmed down and whispered to Naoki to keep this pumping method a secret. He asked if level 38 was really considered high. The fox girl cleared her throat and, putting her hand to her chest, began to tell about the legend, which told that the hero defeated the Demon King. Irene said that the level of that hero was 55. Upon learning about this, Naoki shuddered because the way Naoki got his level was beyond laughter. Naoki said out loud that it turns out there are levels here too. Irene said in her mind that Naoki definitely didn't understand anything. He started to leave and said he hadn't done anything special. Irene looked after him in surprise. After a while, he came back to Kamira's shop. When he fully entered the shop, instead of the old elf Kamira, he saw a young girl. Naoki began to guess who this girl was and asked if she was Kamira's grandmother. Naoki was the one whom God threw into this world after he died in his world. But now, he didn't want to live the same way he had lived before. This guy's real name was Kamuro Naoki. His purpose was to be a cleaner and exterminator. The next day, Naoki will start destroying these pests again. It has been several weeks since Naoki came to this world. He kept a diary so as not to miss anything important. The destruction of those monsters in the sewers brought Naoki good money, so he asked Kamira to rent a house. At some point, the door to Naoki's room creaked. The girl apologized to Naoki and he called her Gray. He looked at the girl in confusion and asked what happened since she came to him. The girl went to his bed and took off her cloak. Sira climbed onto Naoki's bed without warning. The girl hovered over the uncomprehending man. He called out to the girl to understand what was going on here. Sira said with a smile that she had noticed that Naoki was not visited by ladies at all, so she decided to help him herself. When the girl approached him again, Naoki thought that this world presented new surprises to the man from time to time. Recently, Naoki was given a new assignment. Naoki performed it right in the guild. Entering the main hall, Naoki and Irene stopped and saw how the whole room was filled with creepy creatures. They all screamed in horror and then disappeared without a trace. Irene and Naoki walked forward, watching the creatures disappear. Naoki said that his method of getting rid of the creatures worked quite well. Naoki said that he remembered that his task was to get rid of annoying ghosts in the guild. Irene was still surprised at how Naoki managed to get such strong potions. Naoki explained to the fox girl with a smile that all the potions used were homemade. Naoki improved his chemistry and pharmacology skills. Thanks to this, he could now make a high-quality healing potion. In addition, the man managed to unlock the detection skill. Therein lay the possibilities of this world. A person could get abilities for the points that were awarded to him after he raised the level. When he finished writing, the man thought that this world was just beautiful. Naoki did not develop the combat skills needed for battles because he decided to always be an exterminator. He decided to avoid having to use even basic combat skills. The man scratched his head with a smile. Naoki had already discovered linguistics, which was why he had no problems communicating with people around him. In any case, everything was going very well for Naoki. And now he could no longer be afraid of dying of hunger and cold under the fence. In the morning, Kamira was no longer asleep, and from the first floor she began to call out loudly to Naoki. She stood at the bottom of the stairs and called Naoki again because he hadn't heard her the first time. She asked Naoki to come down because they came to see him. Finally, she managed to wake the man up, and he slowly opened his eyes, sleepily mumbling something. He sat up in bed and scratched the back of his head, wondering if anyone could come to him, considering that he hardly knew anyone. Naoki came down the stairs without even changing his clothes. He hadn't woken up from sleep yet, so he was yawning sleepily. When he went down to the hall, he saw that Kamira was sitting at the table, as well as Irene. Naoki said that he did not remember anything about the fox girl recently taking any orders from him. Ariane reported that she had one problem that only Naoki could solve. Later, Irene, the young man needs to clear an abandoned house from a swarm of vesps that has settled there. Naoki remembered that vesps were creatures that looked like bees. Kamira's grandmother and Chamomile were the same person. She was the owner of the chamomile store. She also liked to constantly change her appearance. While Kamira was busy with the store, she turned into a grandmother. The rest of the time, she assumed her usual appearance. Kamira told him that the drugs sold by the old woman seemed to be more effective to everyone. Irene asked him if he would take on this assignment. Naoki asked her why he was chosen for this. He didn't want to take on any job, risking himself there. Irene explained that usually a level B seeker deals with Vespa, but now there were only seekers in the city no higher than level C at the office. The fox girl was told to contact Naoki, because at the lowest G level, he was very capable. The man was not very satisfied with these absurd reasons. He asked Irene if the Vespa were giant hornets with deadly venom. He refused the assignment. The girl drooped and lowered her head. Naoki silently looked at her and then sighed. He couldn't stand the girl's sadness and agreed. He scratched his head and asked Irene to inform her department that it was very unfair of them to send such a cutie to him. Naoki did not explain to her, and instead he asked Kamira if she could make a potion that would paralyze hornets. After that, Naoki began to rummage in his bag of poisons. He said that dealing with the hornets was also part of his job. Now all he had to do was figure out how to poison the hornets. Kamira said that she has such a potion. Naoki turned to Irene and asked her if she could do him a favor. The fox girl asked what service he was talking about, and then Naoki told her about it. Irene agreed without any problems. After all the preparations, the girl said that the house was in the forest, on the outskirts of the city. Naoki asked Irene if there was a sewer system next to this abandoned house. Naoki decided to activate his detection skill and raised his level. Immediately after the man activated his skill, several images with maps of the city appeared above his head. Naoki took his time explaining that the red dots depicted on the map were hornets. Irene asked if these cards were the result of using the detection skill. Upon hearing his words, Kamira howled in disappointment, exclaiming that she had lived for 800 years but had never seen anything like this in all these years. Irene laughed softly at Kamira's reaction. He was walking through a dense forest. Looking around the dark and eerie forest, the man thought that he already knew that it was just the outskirts of the forest, but he did not expect such a sight. A huge alley was built on the Vespa building, which completely absorbed this 3-story building. Naoki crouched down so as not to attract the attention of the Vesps flying from above and cursed inwardly. He lifted his head and looked at the insects that were flying from above. Naoki compared these insects aloud to large dogs. The hive built by the Vespa was really huge. Naoki activated his detection skill and carefully looked at the map of this Vespa-occupied building. Naoki also turned his attention back to the 3 green dots that were underground. The man wondered how people could end up like this. He assumed that they were hiding there and also that they knew what to do with the Vespa. Naoki stood up, preparing to head into this house filled with Vespa. He decided that in any case, he needed to make sure that no one else was in the house. The man took off and quickly rushed to the captured building, deciding to go from the rear to remain unnoticed by the Vespa. Naoki peered cautiously through the doorway to see what was going on in the building. He walked on and was surprised to find another room there. Naoki found a staircase to the basement there. The man carefully approached her and looked down. Only after that, he quietly stepped onto the stairs and began to descend into the darkness of the basement. There was a doorway ahead, but there was no door. When Naoki went downstairs, he found a man lying relaxed on a mattress. He grumbled that his colleague was late, but now his shift was over. Naoki awkwardly scratched his head and calmly greeted the man. He cursed loudly, asking Naoki who he was. Naoki made the assumption that this place was a prison. He said that there was nothing to suspect him of because he was here to kill hornets. The stranger shouted that he did not believe it, and then he shouted that since Naoki had really seen his face, he would not let him get out of here alive. Naoki was not too scared in response and held out his hand in front of him, trying to calm the stranger somehow. But he ignored Naoki's attempts and stabbed him violently in the chest with his knife. The blade of that man's knife cracked and shattered into fragments from just touching Naoki. Terrified, he rushed to the stairs from the basement and ran upstairs. Naoki followed him, trying to stop that fleeing man. He wanted to warn him that if he screamed so loudly, he would definitely attract the attention of the Vesps who filled the house. He stopped abruptly in place when several Vesps suddenly appeared in front of him. The Vespa didn't give him a chance, attacking and killing him with lightning speed. On the house map, which Naoki opened thanks to his skill, it was shown how several yellow dots gathered around a green dot, and then this green dot disappeared. After what happened, Naoki activated his level 1 magic as it was too dark in the basement. In the basement, he found 2 people sitting meekly in place. He reached for the cage door and said that the hinges of this door were quite weak, so it was not difficult for him to open them. Despite the fact that the door was open, both people continued to sit in place. The 2 people sitting limply in the room were an adult man and a young girl in some rags. Naoki then realized that these were not humans, but werewolves. The adult man, without raising his head, said that he thought their end would come now. With a blank look, the girl said that they had no one at all, and the man said that they were servants thrown away by their masters. Previously, Naoki was not surprised that those he had just met were werewolves, because there were humans and elves. The man raised his hand and said hoarsely that he did not know who Naoki was. He said that he was sure that Naoki had already noticed that he was old. Pointing to the girl, he said that she was from the lizard tribe. Her previous owner bought her because of her special talents to practice spells on her, and then he threw her away. The girl quietly asked to be left alone. Naoki said that he had a mission in this place, so he just couldn't leave these two here. When he reached out to the girl to help her up, she flinched and screamed at Naoki not to touch her. She remembered how she had ended up here and said that those who had locked her and the old man here in the basement had also been kind to them at first. And then they abruptly changed their behavior and locked them up here in darkness and hunger with creepy smiles. The girl exclaimed that people always betray everyone. Naoki listened attentively to everything the girl said. Naoki suddenly pulled out a spray bottle from his bag. He started spraying the liquid on the girl. Naoki did not obey the girl and began to slowly step on her, continuing to spray her. The girl shrank and tried to crawl back, but the shackles did not allow her to do so. She was thinking that Naoki wanted to poison her, that's why he's evil. The man asked the girl not to worry about it, and said that the liquid he sprayed her with was not poison. When Naoki sprayed her with that liquid again, the girl squeezed her eyes shut in fear. But in the end, nothing terrible happened and the werewolf remained intact. Naoki sighed in disappointment because his idea never worked. The man thought that such a potion should have worked. Then an idea came to his mind, and he asked the girl to wait a bit. Naoki said that he remembers that in one of the encyclopedias he read there was a note on how to treat it. Naoki said that they should at least get out of the cage first. Naoki squatted down in front of the girl and grabbed the chain from the shackles. He pulled the chain a little and said that all he had to do was get rid of this chain. Naoki gripped the chain in his hands and then pulled it sharply. After that, the metal chain broke into two parts. He walked to the exit of the room and invited the werewolves to leave. He warned them that there were a lot of hornets upstairs, so they needed to move slowly and carefully. Naoki soon managed to get them outside without incident. Immediately, her eyes widened at what she saw. He saw that the girl suddenly burst into tears. He turned to the werewolves and informed them that now they could relax. The hornets won't notice them here because they're far enough away. The werewolves looked after Naoki in surprise. They excitedly wondered why Naoki was going to the mansion again. Entering the trashed kitchen, Naoki looked around and noticed an old saucepan covered with dirt. The previously dirty pan now shone just like new. After that, Naoki put the pot back in place and began rummaging through his bag to find the item he needed now. He took out a white chalk from his bag, which he made from coarse flour and magic. After finishing his preparations, Naoki got to his feet and used a spell to create heat with it. When the spell worked and went straight into the magic circle, Naoki examined it and pronounced that the heater was now completely ready. Naoki was actually creating a trap for hornets. Then he mixed together a poisonous potion and honey. After that, it was necessary to leave the resulting mass to evaporate, leaving the concentrate. Hornets usually settled under the roofs of houses. There were two reasons for this. The first was protection from rain and wind, and the second was easy access to human products. Naoki placed this pot in the center of the room. Naoki and the werewolves patiently waited for the hornet trap to work, and soon they waited for the result. In fact, the hornets were not dead, they were just sleeping, snoring at the same time. Naoki was delighted that his method had worked successfully. Hearing their voice behind him, Naoki started and turned around. Naoki asked the werewolves why they had returned to him instead of waiting for him outside. Naoki took a brush out of his bag and said that now was not the time. Naoki approached the sleeping hornets and began to draw identical magic circles on their backs. The werewolf man told the girl that Naoki's skill combines mathematics and alchemy. While the werewolves were talking to each other, the hornets slowly woke up and began to rise into the air, and then fly out of the building one after another. After that, Naoki decided that his work was done and it was time for them to leave. Naoki said goodbye to the werewolves. Suddenly, Naoki used his skill to create a flame. At the same moment, the werewolves abruptly turned back. This explosion occurred in the mansion. The explosion was so powerful that it shook the whole neighborhood. Watching him, Naoki said that he used the same circle as for heating, but he did not even expect that the explosion would be so huge. The old werewolf asked Naoki who he was. Naoki turned to the werewolf and remembered that he hadn't even introduced himself yet. The young man gave his name. He said that the werewolves probably already realized that he was an exterminator. Naoki turned around and informed the werewolves that he was leaving. As he slowly moved away, the werewolf girl also took a step forward towards the departing Naoki. Naoki turned to the werewolves and asked them why they were following him. The old werewolf replied to him that people like them, that is, discarded people, no longer belong to anyone. The girl explained that abandoned people became the property of the one who found them. Naoki arched an eyebrow questioningly, not understanding what was going on. Finally, the girl explained to him that they belonged to him now. The very next night, Sira began to molest Naoki, and he told her that engaging in lewdness with a girl for whom he had no feelings would make him completely devastated. She curiously asked Naoki about it. Naoki told her that he didn't find her unattractive or anything like that. He suggested that someday he might want to, and after that he might even fall in love with Sira. Sira said that Naoki is very strange. Finally, they went to bed. Naoki lay and stared thoughtfully at the ceiling. Naoki didn't want the werewolves to be his people and serve him, so Naoki told them that he was letting them go so they could live freely. The werewolves suddenly rushed at him. Hanging on to him, they tearfully begged him not to leave them. Naoki indignantly asked why they were bothering him. He was thinking that he had just made his life better. Naoki soon returned to Kamira's shop, and upon entering it, loudly announced his return to Kamira. Naoki turned to the werewolves he had brought with him. He raised his hand and used a cleansing spell on the werewolves. Thanks to this spell, the dirty clothes immediately became clean. After seeing the werewolves, Kamira asked Naoki about what he had done. But she quickly calmed down after listening to Naoki's story, then she told how to cure sulfur. After that, Naoki invited the werewolves to sit on the bed and wait a bit. He took out a needle and walked over to Sira. Naoki carefully inserted the needle and said that acupuncture with a restorative potion should cure sulfur of petrification. There was a soft hiss and the girl's hand healed. The old man was delighted that there was no trace of the petrification on Sira's hand. He asked the girl if she thought it was great. Naoki managed to look at the girl and managed to see that there was something on the girl's ears too. He asked her curiously about what was on her ears and hips. Sira told him that there were scales on her ears and hips, which were a special sign of the lizard clan to which she belongs. They allowed her to change the color of her body, giving her the opportunity to disguise herself and remain invisible. Suddenly the girl stopped talking and sobbed. Naoki asked the girl in surprise about what had happened since she had sobbed so much. Suddenly, she abruptly jumped out of bed and fell to her knees while not stopping sobbing. Sira begged him to let Naoki serve him. After listening to her words, Naoki sighed heavily and thought that he had accepted the werewolves only because he could not leave them alone. He tried to object again and said that he had his own life and work. Then Sira hit her head on the floor and shouted at Naoki to just kill her right there. He was stunned by such a request. He thought about what the old werewolf had said, that they had been abandoned. And they also had a stigma that made it unlikely that they would be able to find a normal job. Naoki scratched his head and agreed to accept her into his ministry. He told the werewolves that they could only serve him if they wanted to. He warned that he simply can't stand being formally addressed. Naoki said that his name was also Kamuro Naoki. Kamuro was his first name and Naoki was his last name. The old man said his name was Baltzek. He said he was old, but Naoki could give him any orders. The girl sitting on the floor called herself Gray. Naoki sighed heavily when Baltzek told Tom that he could order him anything. The old man immediately understood what was going on and apologized to Naoki for it. Baltzek held up his finger with a smile. Immediately correcting himself, he told Naoki to give him easier orders. Suddenly, Sira got angry for some reason and narrowed her eyes angrily. She turned to Baltzek and indignantly asked him how he had the courage to talk to Naoki like that. She asked Naoki to punish Baltzek for this behavior. Later, they went outside and Naoki told the werewolves that he did not know how long they would be together, but he would always be under their care. Sira agreed and Naoki told her that she would get bored, and then he suggested that the werewolves go shopping. He chose new and beautiful clothes for them, which were not as shabby as their previous clothes. Baltzek happily examined her, and Sira was very embarrassed by the new clothes. Naoki examined them busily, hands on hips, and decided that these clothes were just right for them. Naoki smiled at them and told them that they could feel free to ask him to buy something they liked if they wanted it so much. Baltzek reacted immediately and picked up a hat that he had already liked. He smilingly informed Naoki that he would like him to buy him this hat. Sira immediately jumped up to him. She was outraged by his ignorance. Because of her words, Naoki turned away slightly and laughed softly at the fact that Sira was really going to stay in the servants. Turning to the counter, Naoki beckoned Sira to him and waved without turning to the girl. When Sira approached him, Naoki had already picked up her jewelry and attached a large bow to the girl's hair. When Naoki walked away from her, Sira finally came to her senses and roused herself, exclaiming in embarrassment that she could not accept such a thing. Naoki indifferently said that she could throw away the bow if she didn't like it. Sira blushed in embarrassment. Naoki said that he thought the werewolves had already gotten hungry during this time. Baltzek sincerely thanked Naoki as he followed him. Naoki and Baltzek began to slowly move away from the place where Sira was standing. Without turning around, Naoki told Sira to hurry up. The girl froze and blushed sharply and then hurriedly rushed after the departing Naoki. The next morning, Baltzek knocked on Naoki's door. Through the door, he wished Naoki good morning and informed him that Irene from the Travelers Guild wanted to see him. Naoki closed his eyes sleepily and scratched the back of his head, wondering why Irene might need him again, because they had only seen each other a couple of days ago. Walking up the stairs, he noticed Irene sitting at the table and greeted her. He saw Sira sitting motionless in her place and looking directly at Irene, who was also sitting at the table, with withering eyes. Naoki asked Baltsek about what happened to Sira, and he replied that the girl had been like this ever since she found out that Naoki and Irene were going on a date together. Irene told Naoki that she had asked around her friends and thought that these two werewolves would be fine. Leaning over, Irene giggled and exclaimed that Sira was just head over heels in love with Naoki. Naoki sighed heavily and said that he did not envy Sira if she really liked him. Naoki then reminded him that his date with Irene is only 3 days away. Naoki realized that there was a job for him. Irene told him about the fresh remains scattered in the cemetery near the ruins. It wasn't safe there because the Vespa filled the whole neighborhood. Naoki thought about it and an idea came to him. He said that he understood what was required of him and decided to offer Irene something. He said that he would like to entrust this work to Sira and Baltsek. Baltsek had a great nose because he was a werewolf and Sira had a talent for analyzing the situation. Both werewolves froze in surprise when they heard that they would be given this job. Irene scratched her chin thoughtfully and asked doubtfully if servants were allowed to do such difficult work. Sira stared indignantly at Irene and muttered that they could work. Sira turned to Naoki and asked him if she was right in her words. She excitedly said that servants should follow the orders of their masters, so she and Baltsek would follow his orders. Naoki replied to the girl that she was right, but first he needed to discuss something with Irene. Sira lowered her gaze in embarrassment when Naoki agreed. When all this was sorted out, Baltsek and Sira set off on their way to the place where they were supposed to work. Looking after them, Naoki wished them good luck on the way and told them to work hard. Sira immediately exclaimed that she would deal with it quickly. Naoki awkwardly waved back at them, muttering that he did not doubt Sira's abilities. When they left, Naoki suggested that Irene take a little walk and she agreed. As they walked around the city, Irene told me that she was very surprised when Naoki asked her out on a date after the destruction of Vesp. She asked Naoki about what they would do during the date. Scratching his head, Naoki said with a smile that he thought Irene knew a lot since she worked in the guild. He asked the girl if she could tell him more about this world. Then Irene was very surprised by his request, but sighing heavily, she began to talk about how this world was arranged. This world was called Sarasaphi. It was a huge hemisphere. Some said that it was possible to walk to the edge of this world. The country they lived in controlled half of the largest continent. Naoki understood what Irene was talking about and imagined this huge hemisphere. He decided that it looked as if his huge land, where he used to live, had been cut in half, and Naoki remained on one of the halves. The city where Naoki lived was called Kubinia. He was in the middle of a desert called the Scorched Earth. Wars rarely happened there, but information from other parts reached them very slowly. After telling this, Irene apologized to Naoki because that was all she knew. Naoki replied with a smile that it was more than enough for him. Raising his head to the sky, Naoki thought about this world. The land he lived on was full of smartphones and other technology, and almost all the information was freely available. It wasn't that Naoki wanted to know everything about this world, but he needed to know at least something about it. It could be said that Naoki was locked up, just like Baltsek and Sira. Naoki wondered how he came to be in this world. He wondered who could have brought him to this world if there was no deity there. Naoki wondered if anyone was watching him. He compared it to what it would look like. It was as if he was being watched like a rat in a cage. Naoki continued to stare at the sky as he thought about it, as if trying to make out who sent him to this world and was now just watching him from the sidelines. Finally, Naoki spoke and asked a bystander if he was looking at him now. Naoki never got an answer to his question. Only the bright midday sun shone indifferently in the sky. Lowering his head, Naoki scratched his head with an awkward smile and thought that he was dreaming too much. He wondered if this was normal for this world. Naoki then laughed nervously at his own question. Irene took a few steps forward before she noticed that Naoki had stopped. The fox girl turned around and asked Naoki what had happened. He came to his senses and assured the girl that everything was fine. Then Naoki remembered something and informed Irene that his werewolf servants were very hardworking. After that, he asked the girl if she could find them a job. She replied that it would be difficult because they were not seekers. The girl rubbed her chin and an idea came to her. She said that there was still a job that Naoki's servants could do. Naoki looked at Irene in surprise. After walking around the city with Irene, Naoki returned to Kamira's shop and saw that the werewolves were already there. They greeted Naoki. He saw that Sira had a towel in her hands and asked the girl what it was. Then Sira asked Naoki with a smile if he had forgotten about their plans. Naoki started up, remembering that they wanted to go to the sauna. He told the werewolves that they could pack up and go. They went to the city bathhouse and talked with smiles. Sira ran forward and pointed her finger towards the bathhouse. She exclaimed joyfully that the bathhouse was already close, and it was perfectly visible from where they were walking now. Naoki looked at the laughing girl with a smile and said that she, it turns out, knows this city well. Sira turned to him and laughed, saying that she had specifically studied the city inside out. Naoki decided that this was prudent. As they approached the bathhouse, Naoki raised his head to inspect the huge chimney coming out of the bathhouse. It gave him a strong feeling of nostalgia. He asked if it was built with magic. Sira replied that someone unknown had built this pipe 2,000 years ago. Naoki said admiringly that it was built by an amazing man. Sira walked up to Naoki and said with a smile that the man who built this place seemed to be from another world too. Hearing this, Naoki's eyes widened in shock. He asked if they knew anything about this man. Sira replied that they didn't know anything except his name. Naoki realized that this world had already been visited by people from another world. He thought that he himself had achieved less than those people. After Naoki examined the bathhouse built by the same person from another world as him, they chatted with Baltsek for a while. But that conversation about that unusual person who came to this world from another one remained forever in Naoki's memory. While Sira and Baltsek were happily washing themselves in a hot bath, Naoki was thinking about that man and realized that he really wanted to see him. Thinking about it, Naoki didn't even pay attention to what the smiling Baltsek was saying to him. Naoki stared intently at one point and was surprised to realize that he felt a very strong heat in his chest. But Naoki understood that he did not feel this heat at all because of the high temperature in the bath. After a while, everyone found themselves in the forest. Baltsek struck the monster's head, which screamed loudly in pain. All the other monsters immediately ran away. Baltsek informed Kamuro that he had finally managed to lay him down. The guy called him and said that his abilities were really amazing. Baltsek added that he was impressed by the sharpness of the sword with which he defeated the monster. He had never thought that this was a simple sword from a thrift store. Kamuro noticed that he had tempered the weapon by using symbology. The guy also said that he could improve the sword if Baltsek wanted to. The man replied that it would be imprudent to assign the highest rarity to the sword. Baltsek sighed and apologized. He was sorry for the sudden outburst. Kamuro told him not to worry about anything. In all this time, the guy has sorted everything out. Baltsek said he was surprised because a slave like him got a job as a cemetery caretaker, and it was all thanks to Kamuro. The guy replied that Irene had told him how the Vespa had torn apart the last hunter. Baltsek asked if he had had a conversation with Sira. Kamuro replied that it would take the right time, she would hardly like it if he told her now. The guy smiled and suggested that the girl was most likely preparing for her new job. Later they met. Kamuro gave Sira a certificate. She asked him if it was an adventurer's document. Vera asked if she would start training. The guy replied that he did not know how everything would be in the future. But she is already training with Baltsek, and Sira can learn her abilities there. The girl asked if it was useful. Kamuro replied that he understood that training was not his thing. Sira shouted that she understood everything and would try to become better in order to become useful. She looked resolutely at the guy while he was smiling. Baltsek told the young man that Sira's feelings for him were something more than a master-slave relationship, and if he refused, the girl could hate people. Kamuro replied that he was worried about it, and despite everything, it was still easier for him to work alone at his own pace. Baltsek realized that Kamuro had already decided everything. He added that it would look pretty funny. The guy asked him not to talk nonsense. They were carrying out an order to destroy goblins. Kamuro was not eager, but he needed a pair job for Baltsek's assignment. They decided that they needed proof of the destruction of monsters, so they definitely needed their ears. They collected their trophies and both returned to the guild. When Irene saw them, she shouted and asked what their bags were filled with and how many goblins they had killed. Kamuro replied that they had escaped to the caves. He found them with the help of the detection skill and decided to barricade the caves for fishing. There were 36 goblins in total. Irene said that 5 was enough. She explained that the payment for the task increases in proportion to the number of people killed. The guy asked again. Kamuro thought about it and said that he still had a question. Irene immediately looked at him piteously. Baltsek said that Sira was done with training. Kamuro saw a breathless girl who could barely stand on her feet. The guy noticed that the training was just hellish. He used a recovery potion and put her in order. Sira thanked him. Suddenly, a girl came up to them and asked if Kamuro was the master of sulfur. She introduced herself as Ale, the girl's instructor. Ale is a member of the Adventurers Guild. She said that it became known about the strong magic of sulfur, so Ale would like to recommend her to the Academy of Magic. Kamuro was glad. Sira was very surprised. The guy asked if she was happy. Sira replied that she wasn't going anywhere. She shouted that she was only a slave and could not leave, and imagined that she could study at the academy. Ale added that after the research, she can say that Sira has talent and she should develop it. Kamuro decided to repeat her words, but Sira immediately interrupted him. The girl was hysterical. Sira screamed that she only needed to be with Naoki and she wasn't going anywhere. Ale said she understood everything. She turned around and immediately left. Sira was in despair and with tears in her eyes. Kamuro said that he was going to leave this city tomorrow, and this day would be the last for him and Sira. He said that after meeting Irene, he realized how happy Sira was looking around the city. Therefore, he wanted to start exploring the world. In this case, sulfur can become a burden for him. There were tears in the girl's eyes. The guy said that Baltsek got a job as a cemetery keeper. He confirmed it. Sira said she would always be with Kamuro and she would die if he left her. The guy noticed that she was too shy and even hid her pain. The girl said that the surroundings of Gorda are very dangerous. Kamuro replied that his level had increased slightly. Irene noticed that in order to reach the F rank, a guy must pass a development test and fulfill orders. Kamuro asked her again. Irene was surprised that the guy was interested in this, because he hadn't cared about ranks before. Kamuro explained that Baltsek and Sira had previously laughed that he only had the 6th rank. Irene was surprised and apologized to him. The guy wondered why she asked for forgiveness. The girl said that this was probably the last time she would send him on a mission. She shed tears and thanked Kamuro. The guy was very surprised, and he also thanked the girl for everything she had done for him all this time. Later, Kamuro met Ale, who announced that she would take the exam for promotion. He introduced himself and thanked her. Ale added that in order to pass the exam, you need to earn her respect. Someone said that the instructor is obsessed with fighting, and perhaps her opponent will have a hard time. Some even supported the guy, noticing his strange tracksuit, which could not help but embarrass Kamuro. Ale knows that the guy is not fit for any weapon, but I realized that he would not be able to fight with his bare hands, so I told him to use a sword. Hesitantly, he picked up the sword and thanked her. There was silence. Baltsek, Sira, and Irene watched the upcoming fight with interest and excitement. Sira sighed and began to support the guy and Ale. She screamed for Kamuro to give his best, and for the instructor to do even more. Ale warned that she would start now and scoffed at Sira's manner of support. The guy thought he felt sorry for Sira. Ale rushed into battle and reminded that the exam had already begun. Kamuro deflected her blow. The girl asked if he thought that was enough to stop her. She aimed her sword straight at his chest, but the weapon did not penetrate his body at all. Ale became interested. She assumed it was witchcraft and decided to be more serious now. Kamuro looked back and noticed that Ale had become invisible. She said she would end it with her punch. Sira thought that if the instructor wins, perhaps Kamuro will stay in the city due to lack of strength. Ale used her observation skill and chose the target Naoki-sama. The guy thought that he was not cut out for battles at all. Sira knew that her master was kind but also very strong. The guy deflected her blow and knocked her to the ground. Kamuro was level 70. Ale was startled and fell to the ground screaming. Everyone was surprised at how strong he was. Baltsek said he didn't even notice his movements. Irene was also amazed. Ale opened her eyes and sat up. Kamuro asked how she was and if he had passed the exam. The girl replied positively. Ale left immediately. Kamuro thought that her heart must be broken. That's the difference between the levels. Sira ran up to the guy. She clung to him tightly and said that she did not want to be separated from him at all. Later, everyone began to eat. They decided to have a drink as it was Kamuro's last day in town. Sira watched Baltsek and Kamuro drinking beer and began to imitate them, which could not but surprise them. It's time for the guy to leave. Everyone met at the city gate. The guy thanked him for coming to see him off. Sira asked how Kamuro was feeling. The guy replied that he had not been so drunk for a long time. Baltsek remarked that this was too much for a touching farewell. The guy told them not to worry about anything. Irene added that the costs of Baltsek and sulfur will be covered by the guild. Kamuro thanked her for her help. The guy also gave Kamira a bag of money for rent and work. She noticed that it was quite heavy. Kamuro decided to free Baltsek and Sira from slavery and asked them to show the seals. He asked if a ritual was needed for this. Kamuro informed them that they were free now. Both found that the seal had evaporated immediately. The guy thanked them for their work. Sira shouted that she did not want to part with him. She clarified whether she can now freely choose who she wants to be with. Kamuro replied that in that case he would stop talking to her. The girl was immediately indignant. He remembered the proverb that said that every meeting is a treasure because it cannot happen again. You need to appreciate every moment of life. Kamira asked the guy if he remembers how worried she was when he came with Baltsek and Sira. And she added that his actions now are no better than how slavers throw away unnecessary slaves. And if he wanted to be alone, he should have released them right away. Kamuro was taken aback and dissatisfied with Kamira's words. Irene said that it usually takes 7 years to study at the academy, but the guy can do it in 2 years. He was surprised. Sira told the guy that she would become stronger. Kamuro sighed heavily. Kamuro handed Baltsek a pouch. He and Sira asked what was in it. Kamuro replied that it was a connected pouch with a magical artifact. They usually keep in touch with him. Sira, with tears in her eyes, shouted that she would call him every 5 minutes. The guy convinced her that she should call no more than once a month. Kamuro said goodbye to everyone. Everyone looked after him sadly and wished him a good trip. The guy smiled and set off on his way. He waved at them and noticed that the bag was already ringing. Sira had already contacted him and asked how he was doing. During his journey, Kamuro never turned around. He always looked only ahead. Sometimes carts passed by, but he did not want to go with them. Traveling alone was quite pleasant. The guy noticed that someone was watching him and that he was being tailed. With detection, this can be easily calculated. He decided to make an ivy trap using symbology. Kamuro heard someone scream and thought that his trap must have worked. He immediately turned around. And I saw Instructor Ale. Ivy wrapped around her legs. The guy asked what she was doing here. Ale resigned from the guild and is now a seeker. He asked what the girl wanted. Ale said she wanted a rematch because she is a famous warrior. She asked the guy to take this thing off her because Ivy climbs into the most intimate. Kamuro said that he was not interested in dueling at all, and the spell would soon cease to work. Ale shouted that he couldn't just leave. The guy noticed that his level had increased a lot because of work. He replied that he had killed all sorts of evil spirits. Ale was interested in this. Kamuro told her not to talk about it and asked her to come back. Ale said she would stay with him for a while and help him like a comrade. Kamuro thought that she would talk incessantly. The guy asked why she was accompanying him because she even had to quit. The girl replied that she was known in certain circles, and also that he would not accept his defeat. Kamuro thought that Ale was really obsessed with fighting. She wondered why he hadn't been hurt after their fight. The guy replied that he had embroidered a magic circle, which increased the strength of the material. The clothes became armor. Ale was surprised that Kamuro could use symbology. Now Ale understood everything. Ale asked if he wanted to wander alone and convinced him that he could fight monsters too. Ale continued to insist on her own and said that she could be useful to him for the night. Although she is muscular, the girl is confident in her feminine figure. Kamuro imagined various indecent poses that a girl could be in. Ale asked to be allowed to become his senpai. Kamuro told her to hold off on that, for now there would be enough fighting. The girl understood everything. The guy thought that in the future he should send her away. They came to the city of Oslo. Kamuro noticed that he could see the difference between him and Cubinia. Ale said it was only at first. The girl asked what Kamuro's plan was. The guy said he was bankrupt because he spent the money on Sulfur and the others. Upon entering the guild, the girl said she could lend him some Kamuro money. The guy replied that he would earn everything himself. Ale looked at the ads and said that you need to take tasks in advance. For example, there is a boar hunt. Kamuro also needed a task for a man with an F rank. The guy thought about it. He saw a girl approach Ale, who confirmed her participation in the date hunting mission. Kamuro was surprised that Ale had the rank of B. The girl offered to increase his rank so that there would be more tasks. The guy replied that he was not good at dangerous tasks. Some men in armor found Ale by her distinctive bikini armor. Kamuro took a job at the guild. He heard the men mocking him because of his low rank. The guy turned around. Ale noticed that they were laughing at him because of his rank. He replied that he didn't care. The girl was surprised by this. Ale noticed that Kamuro had chosen a strange task to destroy the beetles in the slaver's estate. The girl said that he would not be able to gain experience for the task. Kamuro replied that he needed money for housing first. The strangers continued to make fun of Kamuro. Ale was outraged by their behavior. The guy assured her that everything was fine. Kamuro said he had to destroy the boar because he also couldn't fight with a sword or magic, so it's okay. Ale was surprised. The man chosen by God, Kamuro Naoki, woke up in another world after his death. He wanted to live as before. His task is to destroy pests. Kamuro found out about other aliens who had arrived in this world and decided to go on a journey through it. Meeting and parting with people, he gets into the story of meetings that make up adventures. Beetles are nimble pests with a shiny black body. No wonder they showed up. The guy said that the mansion they were going to for the assignment was beautiful and asked if it had 3 floors. The woman confirmed it and told me to get to work right away. It seems that many houses in this world are built of stone and wood. Concrete and metal have not yet been brought here, so the houses are soon destroyed and pests are in the cracks from there. Kamuro applied the detection skill and was amazed how the whole house was filled with pests. They went into the house. Tell immediately said that there were slaves around, including her, and it was better for him not to communicate with them. The other maids asked Tell what they needed to do. The woman gave them instructions to cook dinner to help with work on the third floor. She turned to the man who stood in front of her with a piece of paper, the owner. He asked her to sort it out on her own. The man was outraged that slaves were not being bought at all. Tell bowed and said she understood him. Kamuro noticed that she didn't show her emotions and thought what a decent woman she was. After a while, Kamuro came to the guild's dining hall. Ale came up to him. He hadn't expected to see her. The girl asked how the guy did the job. Kamuro replied that he did not expect such a large number of beetles. Ale noticed the big bags next to him. She looked at them and saw a bunch of insects caught on glue. The girl screamed in surprise while the guy was eating. She was outraged that Kamuro was bringing this to lunch. The next morning, the guy found himself back in the same house with the beetles. Yesterday, Kamuro found out that this mansion is teeming with beetles and masmaskals. There are few masmaskals, they live in the backyard. A mixture of rat poison and glue traps should work. The guy applied detection and saw that the house was teeming with beetles. Glue traps will definitely not defeat them. Kamuro turned to Tell. He said he needed something. They also need to be driven to the lower floors. The woman replied that any methods are welcome. The guy noticed that it would be pointless if he cleaned room after room. He asked where the basement was. At first, the woman denied his existence. But after listening to Kamuro, she opened a hidden door and showed him the way. The basement was also a prison for slaves. Tell warned the guy to stay away in case of an unexpected attack. He thought that slaves were valuable to the slaveholder, so his request was rejected. The guy decided that he needed to be more careful. Nevertheless, unsanitary conditions prevail here. There was a terrible smell of sweat and feces. It is not surprising that Masmaskali and Jukorans got started. Kamuro said that the conditions here were bad and asked if he could use one room. Tell responded positively. The woman noticed that there was a slave from the wolf tribe here. If the guy can do something about it, he can stay. After opening the door, a wolf rushed at him, but Kamuro immediately neutralized him. The guy said he would give him a healing potion later. Tell was discouraged. Kamuro said he would expel him from here and reminded Tell of his request. The woman replied that she had asked others to fulfill his demands. Tell asked if it would help that the doors and windows would be closed for a few hours, and the stoves would be turned off. The guy said they probably couldn't let the slaves leave. Tell said that in the event of their escape, the reputation of the owner would immediately evaporate. At least it shouldn't kill them. Kamuro asked if Tell wanted to leave. She replied that surveillance was part of her duties. Tell wondered who Kamuro really was. The guy is too eccentric for a seeker and smart. He's probably a spy sent by rivals. Tell couldn't chase him under the contract, but she decided to watch every movement and sigh. Kamuro used symbology, drew a sign, a small induction burner, and took a glass. He put it in the middle. Tell asked what was going to happen now. The guy replied that they would find out everything now. He said ignite, and immediately the painted symbols in different rooms lit up. So there was an explosion in every room. Tell shouted that everything was exploding and asked what Kamuro had done. He replied that he started the smoke, mixed the glue from the trap and rat poison, then dissolved it and placed it in magic circles. He also ignited them by leaving them alone in this room. Traps are activated by temperature. The principle is like that of pesticides. Fog penetrates everywhere, so these traps are very effective against small pests. Tell reported that she had never heard that it was possible to defeat a monster with simple smoke. The guy put on a mask and asked the woman for the same thing. Kamuro didn't want to destroy the walls in the house and show that they were gone. He needs to confirm the destruction of the target for the guild. Tell asked what he was talking about. The guy asked where she would run in case of a fire with one room untouched. Tell started to answer, but suddenly she guessed. Her eyes widened. The woman was amazed. She saw a room full of beetles. Tell screamed in horror. Kamuro applied detection and saw that the beetles were collected underground. He also used ignition. The guy said it was better for them to leave now. This fog is not dangerous in small doses, but if you breathe for a long time, it can do harm. Kamuro called Tella. The woman lost consciousness but did not fall. A decent man, even under mortal threat. Now the guy will have to pull it out. The next day, Kamuro got into the wagon with Tula and Ale. The guy thanked the coachman who picked them up. He asked if they were going to another city. Kamuro replied positively. Ale started laughing at the guy. He asked her not to be so loud. Ale noticed that he went to clean the house and returned with a maid. Kamuro replied that the slave owner did not have enough money. Seeing so many bags, the slave owner was surprised. Kamuro added that for each pest there are 2 knots, then he is owed 20 for 10,000. The man was taken aback by what he heard. He offered the guy to negotiate with the help of slaves. Kamuro did not approve of this idea. Tell in that case asked him to buy himself for this job. He had heard that Tell had worked as a maid in this house for half her life. But the skills are at a decent level. She thanked him for buying her despite such an old body. Komuro added that her master did not want to harm her reputation, which is why he so easily agreed to the transfer of Tell. Ale introduced herself to her. Tell said it was nice to meet Ale herself too. Komuro noticed that she was just his companion. Ale asked if she wasn't good enough for him. Komuro asked her not to kill him. He turned away from her and blushed. Ale smelled good and the guy had a hard time. He was holding back his little enemy. Tell bowed to him and told him that from now on she was in his power. The guy said he didn't understand the formalities and asked her to be more free. Tell objected to him and said that her seal obliges her to be polite to the end. During the journey, Ale asked him about his plans because she thought that he would stay in Oslo. Komuro noticed that he was there for the money and now wants to explore the world. Tell suggested getting to the city on boats. Slavers often use this. Ale actively offered to swim together as well. Komuro praised the woman for her good work. She asked him again. The guy added that it means gratitude. Tell said she was proud to be of service to him. The guy noticed that she was too callous and needed to be softer. There were many dragons flying around the carriage which were aggressive. Everyone was extremely surprised. Tell wondered what kind of roar was coming from. The coachman shouted that they were wyverns and immediately stopped the carriage. Ale got off the wagon and said there was a whole pack of them here. They attacked together, raining down on the victim from heaven. Wyverns are evil dragons. Ale said they were flying lizards and monsters that needed to be defeated for the B-rank exam. Komuro looked at everything with surprise and wanted to offer his help to Ale. But I noticed that she was already fighting. She screamed that monsters were not a hindrance to her. The guy got hungry and asked Tell if it was possible to eat wyverns. Women have heard that their meat is very tasteless. Ale butchered the wyvern carcasses. Later, they fried their meat. Together with the others, Komuro began to eat. Someone said that the meat is very tasty. Tell was surprised by the guy's behavior and asked if he was always like this. Ale replied that he was always unpredictable. She added that it's interesting when everyone around is so passionate. The coachman noticed that it was strange that the weavers had appeared now. Another man said that they had not been here for a very long time because they were being eaten by a red dragon. Komuro imagined this dragon and wondered if it was the same as Denaries. A man nearby asked them if they were seekers and saw a den nearby. They are opponents and arrange fights in a village nearby. The other one said you can't go there. Komuro offered to take a look at it, which caused extreme surprise to Tell and Ale. They arrived in this city 2 days after traveling by ship. The port city of Marinaport is one of the largest, which serves as a gateway to the continent. There are many ships moored in the harbor. When everyone arrived, it was night, so we urgently had to look for a guild and a tavern. The next morning, the three of them decided to have breakfast at the tavern. Ale sat down at the table. Komuro came and was greeted. Ale said the food was great. Komuro realized that he had never eaten Tell's cooking. The woman replied that she had to learn a lot. Komuro invited Tell to sit at the table with them. She didn't want it, but the guy noticed that it would be worse if the food got cold. The guy wished him a pleasant appetite and began to eat. After tasting the food, he admired how delicious it was. Ale and Komuro enjoyed their meal, even fighting to eat an extra portion. Tell was excited. Komuro later said they had a new assignment. Ale saw that the order was to clean up the shipyard and destroy the Mazmaskals. The guy starts today. Tell was surprised by this and asked why he was taking the order. I've just received a big award. A boat trip shouldn't cost that much. Komuro asked them how they liked the idea of buying a small ship. Tal and Ale were extremely surprised. The guy noticed that then they would be able to travel whenever they wanted. This is definitely necessary for traveling the world. Tell said it wouldn't be cheap, but there was a good deal to be made in the city, and Komuro had earned 20,000 gold, so he was able to cover the costs. Ale grinned and said that Komuro often surprises her. The girl went to sell bags of wyvern scales, which the guy handed over. Wyverns are hard to beat. That's why their scales are expensive. Komuro thought that the red dragon had surprised him very much. The next day, Komuro and Ale went to the cave where the dragon should be. They found him, a dragon with a huge body and a loud roar. Ale tried to put herself in order so as not to disconnect from the sight of the dragon. The girl shouted that he was coming. Komuro redistributed skill points and learned the dragon language. He realized that the dragon was unhappy that they had interrupted his sleep and rushed into him. They tried to explain themselves, but the difference between his appearance and the way he spoke broke the patterns for all of them. The dragon flew away and complained that he would have to go outside for the wyverns, but he was very hungry. Komuro thought that he looked very much like a hermit. After that, the guy found an amulet of appreciation. He is not needed now, so Komuro postponed it. It was strange that the dragon fell asleep right away, but knowing about the creatures here won't hurt. Komuro told Tell that Ale had promised to meet them later, so they needed to go to the shipyard. The woman agreed. Komuro gave her his hand so that Tell could get down, so they continued on their way. The woman felt very strange. They have arrived on a mission. Komuro told the man that he had come to clean up the pests. He shouted for someone to call the chief. Later, a man with a beard came and introduced himself as Borak, the local chief. Someone was surprised that he finally showed up. Borak said he would show everything. Komuro was at a loss. The man said that the shipyard is the heart of shipbuilding, a kind of large ship's storeroom. They saw the ship. Komuro was amazed and said that he was really huge, especially when you look closely. Some guy added that Chief Borak personally built this shipyard. This is the result of improving quality without any hack work. Borak scolded him, saying that this information was not needed by the seeker at all and that one should work with one's hands, not with one's mouth. Borak said he would explain the assignment at his office, which is located nearby. When they arrived, Tell was surprised, and Komuro said that he now understood the meaning of the word finally. The inside of the office was a complete mess. There were things everywhere and it was dirty. Borak noticed that it would be a grueling job and he needed to find a chair. Suddenly, a mug fell off the table which Tell accidentally touched. Komuro managed to catch her. She thanked him. Borak shouted at them not to touch anything because everything is important here. Komuro apologized. Borak held his head and said that he should apologize for shouting. His job had made him short-tempered. He said that there is a men's team here. They love work, but they don't care about order, so there's dirt everywhere. Borak sent a task to the guild, but everyone refused. Borak asked if they would be satisfied to start now. Komuro replied that he didn't mind, but it would take a few days. He'll have to get here from the city. Borak said that they would do him a favor this way. They said goodbye. Komuro said he would take care of the pests and Tell would clean up. So the night came. Tell and Komuro were very tired from work and sat down powerlessly at the table. The guy was supposed to get stronger after leveling up, but there was too much dirt. Komuro said they were pretty tired out there. Tell responded positively. Later, all came up to them. She asked how the shipyard was doing. Komuro asked if she had won in the arena. Ale replied that she did it to test her skills because her level increased after the fight with the wyverns. She also sold scales. The guy praised him. Ale noticed that she is a famous seeker and it's not just like that. The girl noticed that this Komuro was too strong. Ale added that the prize for winning the arena is a ticket to the ship. Now it is difficult to get it with every wrecked ship, as the coastal waters are stormy. Komuro was surprised. He thought she had chosen to rent a boat. Having your own ship is too unrealistic. They'll probably be separated here. Another invaluable meeting. Tell turned to him with her head down. The guy looked at her questioningly. The woman knelt down and asked to be forgiven for the shame she had caused. Tell said that a slave shouldn't make the master apologize. She asked him to punish her as he wished. Komuro told her to look at him, and replied that if she wanted to tell him something, she should not pay attention to the status. Tell was horrified to say that it would damage his reputation. And if the task is cancelled, then the reward is too. Komuro suggested solving problems as they come. There is no need to try if they have such a client in front of them. The guy said that if she couldn't handle something because of something, then he would apologize. Ale smiled and listened to him. Komuro added that if Tell's suggestions help improve the work, then she should definitely say it right away. Tell was extremely surprised. She thought it wasn't a mask at all. Komuro really sees her as his equal. The guy noticed that Borak also apologized, so he is not a bad person. Tell understood everything now. Ale said she would help them tomorrow. Komuro smiled and thanked her because now they will try everything together. So the three of them went on a mission. The surrounding people watched them with surprise. Borak was also looking at them. Komuro exterminated the pests and immediately put them in bags. Meanwhile, Tell saw a large amount of dirty dishes in the sink. She rolled up her sleeves and resolutely got to work, so the kitchen became brilliantly clean. Other workers watched her work and were surprised. Borak noticed this and hit one of the guys on the head. He turned around and saw how the boss was unhappy that they were just hanging around. The man decided to take a look himself and was amazed at how clean it became. After that, Ale came over and took all the garbage bags. Borak was also surprised by this. Later, Tell cooked dinner and set the table. Komuro came up to them and saw how the workers and the boss were greedily and with great appetite eating the food. The guy smiled and Tell bowed. He heard a conversation where Tell was saying that she needed to clean up everything here. Borak replied that he would do it himself. Komuro saw them together. Tell said that Borak would not leave because he was the one who made the order. She reproached him for not setting an example to his subordinates. Borak pleaded guilty. Tell asked him if he wasn't lying to make room for her and get on with his work. Komuro thought it was an oil painting. A reliable wife building her guilty husband. They looked just like a family. The guy thought about it. They finished the job without any obstacles after a week. During this time, they became close to the chief and his subordinates. The next day, Komuro said that they already needed to say goodbye. Ale replied that she needed to make breakfast for the workers as they begged her while crying. The guy chuckled and noticed that she was quite popular. He approached the workers and asked where the Borak chief was. They told him to be quiet because they were watching someone. The guy saw the boss and Tell. One of the workers said that there had been a pleasant atmosphere between them for a long time and also asked Komuro to give them a little more time. He grinned and said he didn't mind. Ale came up to them and exclaimed that she wanted to see it too. Komuro told her not to lean on him like that. Due to Ale, Komuro accidentally almost fell, and that's why he was noticed. Tell looked at and addressed him. Komuro was extremely embarrassed and greeted her. At this time, the workers laughed at this situation, and Ale looked at them awkwardly. Komuro approached the woman while Borak stayed behind. One of the workers scolded Ale and told her to stay behind from now on. The girl was confused and understood everything. Tell informed Komuro that Chief Borak had proposed to her. The guy was surprised and wanted to congratulate her, but the woman immediately interrupted him. She added that she was at a loss and lowered her head. Tell had served all her life in the mansion where she was a slave. She wondered if she could live in freedom being old. The woman asked if the guy remembers the day they ate what Tell cooked. It was the first time for her. Komuro asked what it was. Tell noticed that her food was eaten immediately and even thanked. She couldn't explain the feeling when her heart contracted. Tal remembered when she cooked for her past master. He often said that he was busy and didn't have time to eat at all. The owner asked Tell to get rid of it because of lack of time. Therefore, when Komuro and Ale are happy to eat, she is at that age, which means happiness. Komuro was amazed by what she said. Ale noticed that Tell was walking back to Borak. She was surprised that the woman had already finished talking to the guy. Meanwhile, Borak approached Tell and opened the ring in front of her. The woman nodded silently, accepting his marriage proposal. The workers, along with Ale, were very surprised. Komuro was smiling. The boss put a ring on her. The guy freed the woman from slave service. He asked her if it wasn't wonderful to start a new life at an advanced age. Komuro thought it was just like him, who was starting to live in another world. He said that now Tal could start making pleasant memories to make up for all the things she had seen before. The woman was very confused and blushed at what she heard. Tal walked over to Borak and he hugged her tightly. The workers shouted and were very happy for them. Komuro thanked Telip for telling him about herself. If she hadn't told so much at their first meeting, she probably wouldn't have told about the offer now and acted as if nothing had happened. That's why Komuro thanked her. The fact that the woman sincerely told about her feelings made him happy. She was very startled by what she heard. The woman immediately began to cry and bowed. Tell thanked Komuro for everything he had done for her. Later, they started saying goodbye. Ale was walking behind and asked if he wanted to leave so early. The guy replied that it would be rude to linger. He asked if Ale was sure she wanted the ticket back. She replied confidently that she did. Ale added that she had left it as insurance. Komuro was surprised by this. He thought he had set himself up. Ale gave it to Tell and said it was a holiday gift for her to use for her honeymoon. The woman's expression was indescribable. She looked happy. Komuro didn't understand why he was putting her in an awkward position. Ale asked if the guy was worried about her. Komuro smiled and said no. He introduced her and added that she would definitely be fine. Ale replied that if he thought so, she would feel better. He asked if she was still hesitating because the chef rarely has a decent lunch. Ale said she could understand why he had feelings for Tell. She suddenly realized that now it would be just the two of them. An offer to be together forever popped into my head. Ale blushed and said she was very interested in those who were stronger than her. Komuro said nothing and walked on. Ale was getting closer to him. Komuro was outraged that she was coming to him. Ale asked if she could. The guy replied that he didn't and smelled a pleasant smell from her. After returning to the tavern, Komuro remembered that he forgot to ask the chief for a boat, and now they can't return. Ale laughed at him and said how not cool it was. The day after saying goodbye to Tell at the tavern, Ale came to Komuro. She said that the guy was early today and asked what he had in the bag. The guy replied that he thought about calling Sira and Baltsek because it had been a long time. He noticed that these were the two he had said goodbye to in the cubicle. The girl immediately asked if this couple was in love with him. The guy replied that it was so. Meanwhile, Baltsek was cleaning up the cemetery and heard the bell in the bag. He replied to Komuro that they had not spoken for a long time. The guy noticed that it was about a month ago. Komuro was glad to hear so much energy in his voice. Baltsek replied that they were doing well thanks to him. He asked him if Sira was in class because she didn't answer him. After that, he heard a loud scream. Sira exclaimed and started asking if Nayaki-sama was calling her. The guy replied that he could call at another time if she was busy. She shouted loudly at him not to hang up. It seemed to Komuro that Sira was not against the established order of things. The girl replied that this was not the case. Sira said it breaks her heart that she wants to see him every day. Sira asked how his journey was going. Kamuro replied that he wanted to travel alone at his own pace, but his company had increased slightly. She asked if she had increased by a girl. The guy hesitated and replied that there were two of them, a maid and a warrior girl. Sira was amazed that there were already two girls while she was away. She was screaming and asking him to get away from them immediately. Sira assured him that it was a mistake and they were deceiving him. Kamuro added that the maid left their company yesterday. The girl smiled and was very happy about it. After that, she asked who the warrior girl was. The guy replied that she should know her because this is the instructor of the guild Ale. Sira thought about it and remembered her. She said she remembers her. Ale intervened in the conversation and said that she was the one who recommended her to the Metropolitan University. Ale asked her how about a word of thanks. Sira shouted that Lee Ale was an exhibitionist. Ale was outraged. Kamuro added that he also thinks that about her. Ale and Sira were very indignant. Meanwhile, an idea came to Ale's mind. The girl pointedly began to act out the scene. She started asking the guy why he was doing it so unexpectedly. Sira was confused and angry at what she had heard. Ale began to moan significantly. Sira thought that this simply could not be. In Sira's head, there were scenes of Ale taking Kamuro's hand and placing it on her hips. She imagined Kamuro caressing her with his hands. And Ale is seductively writhing, taking various poses and moaning from the pleasure that Kamuro brings her. Ale continued to moan on purpose so that the girl would hear. Kamuro blushed and asked what she was doing. Ale told Sira to do her best and throw all her wild powers into her studies. She also added that she would take care of Kamuro. Sira shouted furiously. Things got out of control and the connection to the brain was completely lost. Kamuro asked Ale not to mock Sira, taking advantage of the fact that she does not see them. The girl laughed and replied that this was payback for calling her an exhibitionist. Ale said she needed to go wash up and then finally, go have breakfast. The girl stopped and turned to him. She turned around and said that if he really wanted it, he could feel free to ask her whenever he wanted. The guy was embarrassed and blushed. He replied that he did not want to have intercourse with someone he did not love. Ale replied that it was completely normal. Subsequently, Sira later arranged an interrogation with partiality. Kamuro was sitting on an armchair and reading a book. Ale read the title and asked what someone with knowledge of monsters meant. The guy replied that he was wondering if there was anyone in the world who was familiar with monsters and explored them. Ale replied that there are experts on monsters. The guy asked again. Kamuro said that Masmaskali, Vespa, beetles, and the red dragon are all different from the pests he knows. If they are in other lands, they will be able to come across more dangerous monsters. The guy remarked that it would be great if they could find someone who would agree to join them on the journey. Ale added that she had heard about the huge creatures on the other side of the sea. Ale said they must be vicious creatures lying in wait. She exclaimed joyfully that she couldn't wait. Kamuro became restless. Ale said she knows a monster expert. She lives here. She asked if the guy wanted to meet her. Ale added that she has so many worries right now and is the daughter of the lord who owned these lands in the past. Everyone knows her here. She is a monstrumologist known as Vers, and a celebrity of sorts. Kamuro asked again. The next morning, on Isle's recommendation, the guy visited a monstrumologist and unknowingly caught two birds with one stone. In front of him stood an old stone building that was one step away from destruction. He thought he heard a quiet answer after the knock on the door. Looking into the living room, walking across the dusty floor and looking at the moldy bread, Kamuro realized that she was here. And for some reason, he's breathing hard. The guy saw Belsa in front of him. She was exhausted and asked for water. The guy asked if she was okay. They sat down at the table. Versa began to eat greedily without stopping. Kamuro thought how good it was that he had saved some wyvern meat. The guy asked if she could talk now. Versa smiled and said how delicious it was. She thanked her savior because she almost died of starvation. She looked up at him and asked who he was. The girl introduced herself as Versa, the same monstrumologist that Kamuro was looking for. After that, she showed the guy the next room as soon as he explained his purpose to her. So they came to an old, dusty room. There were different types of monsters around. Kamuro was delighted and asked if it was a room for research. Versa explained that she was too involved in research, so she spent all her money and could not live normally for several months. She rebuilt the room. The girl said that therefore she would not be able to help Kamuro. She apologized to him. The guy offered her in that case to earn money. She said that the seekers benefit from her knowledge, so she can join the group to complete tasks. Besides, the townspeople are very afraid of monsters. Therefore, she can teach them how to deal with problems that concern monsters. She will always be welcome and this will create new offers. Versa replied that she had thought about it but everyone hates her. Komuro said that if she had enough money, she would be able to continue her research. After Komuro applied his abilities, namely cleaning, Vers was surprised by household magic. She noticed that he uses very interesting magic despite being a seeker. The room immediately shone with cleanliness. The guy said he wanted to become her sponsor. Versa was surprised and immediately asked him again. He replied that, as a refund, he would like her to provide him with the results of the research. The guy added that he could get the samples she needed if necessary. Vers asked if it was a joke as the conditions were too good. He asked if she trusted him. The girl replied positively. Komuro placed a bag of money in front of her. He said he could only offer 5,000 notes at the moment. That's all he had with him. Vers was amazed. She thanked him and said she couldn't accept it. The guy asked why. She replied that exploring monsters is a journey without end. And if he hopes for any result, then she thinks that she will not be able to meet his expectations. Komuro replied that there was no problem with that. He said he was doing it out of pure curiosity. It would be great if they learned something that could be useful in the future to destroy monsters. It's okay if it doesn't happen. He asked why she shouldn't try. The girl asked if Komuro was sure of his decision. He nodded in the affirmative. Versa shed tears and nodded affirmatively, raising her head. With a smile on her face, the girl offered to do it. After Komuro said goodbye to the girl and went back. After a while, a new day and new beginnings came. Komuro came to Verse. She will conduct research and experiments on monsters while he will supply them to her. The guy also took over the cooking duties. Versa was sitting at the table and studying the monsters. Komuro stood next to her and listened to the girl with interest. She was leafing through the book carefully and noticed many bags of monster carcasses that Komuro had brought her for research. She was amazed at how many monsters were in front of her, ranging from insects to large animals. Meanwhile, Komuro started cooking and put on an apron. He was frying food in a frying pan and soon served the dishes to the table. Versa ate with great appetite and was clearly pleased. Komuro asked what motivated her to become a monstrumologist. He was amazed at how easily she handled the carcasses of monsters. She replied that she had been partially interested in monsters since childhood, and this was also due to an event that happened recently. The guy asked her again. The girl looked out the window and said that 5 years had passed since that moment. There was a time when she was unhappy. She didn't care about anything to the point that she didn't do anything. One day, a man approached her and suggested that she explore monsters and become a scientist. He encouraged her to inherit her father's will and do things that benefit her and other people in the city. Thanks to this, she was able to become who she is today. Versa's father was once a lord, and after his retirement, he appointed the man who was her lieutenant at the time as his successor. He is now the current lord. Komuro thought that Ale had said that Versa was the only daughter of the previous lord. Komuro said that the current lord is not a bad person. The girl agreed with him and added that it was time to continue the experiment. Meanwhile, someone was watching Vera's house. In the center of the city, in the lord's mansion, a man turned to my lord and said that he had a report from the spies. It seems that a stranger visited Vers for several days. His name is Naoki Komuro. It seems that thanks to his help, Versa's research has resumed. The lord stood by the window and replied that he just had to let her die. He ordered Vers and that man to be brought to him. The man asked what to do with her research. The lord replied that there was no difference. He ordered to go there at night, not to be seen by anyone, and burn everything there. So the night came, a fire broke out somewhere. The next morning, Komuro was sleeping in bed while Ile ran into his room and woke him up. She screamed at him to wake up. He asked what kind of panic there was in the early morning. The girl said something about the house of Vera. Komuro jumped up and decided to run to help. At that time, he was stopped. One of the armed men pointed at him with his sword and said that he was arrested for treason. He said that if he hadn't interfered, they wouldn't have had to burn down Versa's house and kidnap her. The guy didn't understand what was going on and was at a loss. Ale shouted and asked if Versu had been kidnapped. Komuro took the man by the collar and pulled him towards him. He immediately fell to the ground and was outraged by the guy's antics, asking what was going on. He said he couldn't move. Komuro approached him and asked what was going on. Komuro later ran with Ale. There was a huge crowd of people in front of them. Ale asked what it was. Komuro replied that they were all standing in front of Versa's house. The guy apologized to the people and squeezed into the crowd. He was taken aback by what he saw in front of him. Everything was destroyed. The stranger asked him if he was a friend of Versa and added that it was not surprising that he had often seen him here lately. Someone said they searched the wreckage, but they didn't find Versu. The other man replied that he had seen them last night. They were in a hurry, so they quickly disappeared after the abduction of Versa. It might have been the butler, judging by the way he moved. The guy asked the stranger who he was talking about. The man replied that that was what they called the Lord's butler. He was the first champion in the arena. Even if they wanted to stop him, they still couldn't. Komuro thought that even despite the girl's words, it seemed that everyone was really worried about her. He asked the guys if he hated Versu by any chance. They looked at each other. The man said he understood what was going on. Apparently Versa is still worried about what happened 5 years ago. They were terribly immature back then. Komuro asked what they meant. After the guy and Ale came to the gate of the Lord's mansion, the girl said it must be here. Komuro noticed that the gate was open. The butler told them to stand and not move. No one enters without permission. They were standing still. Komuro saw a man in front of him and thought that by butler they meant him. Ale smiled and said he must be the butler and she had heard of him. They say he's very good. Komuro thought that she was very excited. He said he had heard that Vers was here. The butler replied that he couldn't talk about it. He added that if they cross this line, they will be acquainted with thieves, and the man will be forced to destroy them. Komuro thought he was telling them to stay away, but the gate was left open. The guy decided that the butler was trying to provoke them. The butler thought it annoyed him. He decided to act on his own. Taking the blades, the man threw them at the guy and the girl. Ale immediately took up her sword and repelled his attack. She said she would take care of him. Komuro thanked her. The butler thought that the guy did not react to his attack at all. Apparently, only the girl would be a hindrance. At this time, Komuro walked up to the gate and applied the detection skill. He saw that there were a lot of people in the mansion. They were probably waiting for ill-wishers. There are 2 people in the room adjacent to the hall on the ground floor. Maybe it's Vers and Lord, and these people are here to guard them. At this time, there was a fight between Ale and the butler. He said that unfortunately, this guy definitely won't come back alive. And he added that they had been watching Versa all this time, so they knew they would come. At this very moment, the robbers they lured here with the promise of golden mountains would probably get rid of him. After opening the gate, Komuro saw a large number of robbers who were clearly waiting for him. Ale laughed at the butler and said that his decision to let Komuro pass and switch to me didn't give them a chance. They continued the fight. The girl added that it was the first time she had seen Komuro so aggressive. The butler asked what she was talking about. Ale said that no one was capable of stopping him, especially now. The guy defeated everyone and the exhausted robbers lay around him. When he opened the door, he saw a gun explosion coming towards him. The guy managed to avoid him and said it was terribly rude. The Lord shouted in indignation and said that it was impossible because he had hit it. The guy said that the clothes look intact. The man shouted if he had hit him. Komuro asked Versa if she was okay. The girl asked what he was doing here. The Lord grabbed the girl and forcibly pressed her to him. Versa said that a fire broke out in her house, and when she came to, she found herself here. She didn't understand what she was doing here. The Lord looked at the guy angrily. Komuro thought they hadn't told her anything. He asked the Lord if they planned to kill him and Versu. If any of them had survived, their vile dealings would have been exposed. Komuro replied that the servants he sent to pick him up at the hotel told him everything he wanted to know after the guy threatened them. The guy turned to Vera and said that this was not the man he pretended to be. He pushed the former lord to resign and took advantage of Vera while she was vulnerable. And he encouraged her in order to achieve his goals. Versa asked if Komuro was telling the truth. The Lord was furious and unable to stand it, told the truth. This must have been his plan from the very beginning. And so, bursting like a bubble, the Lord began to reveal everything. 5 years ago, after the eruption of the volcano, lava reached the city, which led to significant damage. At this time, the Lord took care of his people and did everything to rebuild the city, including at their own expense. But one day, caravans carrying supplies began to be attacked, by putting the action into a scenario where the shipments never reached their destination. Because of this, people lost faith in Versa's father. This forced him to leave his post and move to the village. But worse, the popular anger did not stop at the Lord and began to spread to his daughter Versa. The criticism against her has become stronger. Vers broke away from his arms and asked the Lord why he did this, because he supported her all the time. She shouted that he told her to become a monstrumologist. The man denied this and said that if the Lord's daughter disappeared immediately after her resignation, then people would begin to suspect him. The reason he suggested that someone so young become a monstrumologist was because he hoped that some monster would finish her off. If a monster had killed Versu, then the Lord would have been above suspicion. He shouted that this girl was the daughter of a lord. She would still like to regain her position. The Lord had already thought that she had starved to death. But then a stranger appeared from somewhere in the person of a guy who starts supporting her. That's why the Lord decided to make a direct decision. Vers was extremely amazed. She knelt down, horrified by what she had heard. Komuro said it was just ridiculous. He added that the Lord was very cowardly because he had been waiting for Versa to die for all these 5 years. The Lord shouted at him to shut up. The girl sat up and said she wanted to leave. The guy hugged her to him and replied that it was a good idea. The Lord shouted that it wasn't over yet. He added that she was resisting the Lord's orders and that was treason. The whole kingdom will be hunting for their heads. He shouted that he had heard that there were elite special forces in the capital of the Magic Academy. They'll grind them to powder. Kimuro replied to tell the Lord to be careful, because no matter what, he would stop him. The Lord was furious at what he heard, but then lowered his head. Meanwhile, Versa and Kimuro left the palace. The guy turned around and called the girl. Vers began to laugh. The girl said that she continued to believe in his words that he said that day until now. She couldn't even imagine that he could lie. Versa said that she was very naive, and if you put stupid before her name, then that would be the perfect description of her personality. Kimuro listened to her in silence. She painfully said that her house and research had completely burned down, now she had nothing else. Versa started crying and saying that now she has nothing more. Kimuro asked her why she didn't go with him. He held out his hand to her. The girl wanted to take it but did not do it. Kimuro asked if she was afraid to trust anyone now. He asked her if she was worried about what would happen if she trusted someone and was betrayed. Vers was silent. The guy smiled and told her to do what she thought was right. He has his own circumstances, and as a result, he has just started his life in this world. In the beginning, he had absolutely nothing. Now he's settled in one way or another. During the trip, he had to part with friends who became very close. But he doesn't regret it, because he made a decision that he considered the best at that time. He doesn't know if his advice will help Vera. The guy asked why not give him a chance. The girl replied that he was right. Then Versa raised her head and declared without hesitation. She wiped away her tears and said she wanted to go with him. The girl asked me to take her with me. The guy smiled and answered her positively. At his request, Borak found a small but cheap boat. So they arrived at the port. His subordinates looked at it to make sure that the boat was suitable for sea travel. It seems that Versa was still mistaken in her judgment that everyone still does not like her. The townspeople were very sorry for their unjustified anger. Kimuro saw Tell, the chief and his subordinates in front of him. He thanked everyone. Now he decided to go on the road with Ale and Versa. Everyone waved at him and wished him a fair wind. They arrived on an island and saw a huge monster in front of them. The guy was extremely surprised. The name of the man who was chosen by God to go to another world after his death is Kimuro Nayaki. Thanks to this, he was able to stay with the same as he was. And yet he continues to fight pests in his new life in the new world. After crossing the ocean, a new adventure awaited them on an island full of dense forests. The island was rich in its originality. Versa exclaimed with delight. Seeing a wild boar, she noticed that he was definitely bigger than a wild boar. But it is absolutely not dangerous if it is not provoked. Kimuro looked at him and said that the boar looked quite dangerous. Vesra said that an adult should be no more than 2 meters tall. This island is a bit strange. Kimuro noticed that it would be necessary to be a little more careful here. Isle ran up to them and said that there were still some demonic creatures here, and they were running here. Kimuro shouted that now was not the time to admire. Vesra said with admiration that there is a flock of giant mazmeskals here. She asked if it was a new species. Kimuro thought that these two were lost forever. The guy added that they could actually destroy their ship, and that's not good. He decided to try his new rat poison. Ale said she would help too. Versa noticed that these two were quite strong. Later, Kimuro exterminated the pests and asked if anyone else was hiding. Ale replied that everything was fine and she killed everyone. Versa thought about it and said that something was wrong, as if something was transforming these creatures. Kimuro replied that perhaps evolution on this island happens by itself. He asked if it wasn't normal for species to adapt to their environment. For example, like snakes, which in the course of evolution were divided into marine and terrestrial. It seemed strange to Vera that demonic creatures evolved in this way. The guy asked how they differ from the usual ones. Versa replied that if demonic monsters see that their relatives have been killed, they try to escape if possible. First of all, they are, of course, familiar with the instinct of self-preservation. But these monsters attacked us until they killed us. It's like they're being manipulated. She felt that someone was controlling them. Besides, everyone came running from one side. Kimuro thought that, as expected, monstrumologists notice things that he wouldn't even think about. The girl said that, in other words, if they went to the place where they all came from, then it would be possible to reveal the secret of this island. The guy thought that it seemed that Vers was a little distracted from the events at the seaport. She looks a lot more cheerful now. She shouted that she would be back soon. Kimuro tried to stop her. The girl decided to run, but the guy stopped her, lifting her in his arms. She screamed at him not to let go. Kimuro replied that it was too dangerous and he would go first, and she should stay behind. Ale laughed at them. And so they continued to explore the area while Kamuro tried hard to keep everyone alive. The guy told her that if she didn't obey him, he would send her back to the port, so they continued on their way. After that, a huge snake appeared in front of them which screamed furiously. Ale went straight into battle. They walked through the forest and destroyed all the demonic creatures that came in their way. Ale called the guy. Kamuro said they seemed to be surrounded. They saw people around them who were armed with a bow. Some girl took a bow and fired. Kamuro put himself in front of Versu to protect her. She was surprised that the arrow hadn't hit him. Kamuro said that about 10 people are hiding in the trees. Ale told them to leave it to her. Vesra thanked the guy for saving her. Kamuro told the girl to wait because all the people are armed with bows. Ale replied that there were only 9 of them, so it wasn't a problem. The guy said he didn't mean the number of people. While taking steps, Ale used magic that created a foothold in the air. The girl turned around, asking what happened. Kamuro replied that he did not know that she had magic. She asked him if he had forgotten how she used this skill during the level-up exam. Ale laughed at how long it had been. Anna said that she is not just a warrior. In fact, she can also use magic. Kamuro was amazed that Ale turned out to be a warrior mage. The girl said she would be back soon. Ale rose high up and decided to attack right away. The guy saw how high she had risen and was surprised. Soon the girl neutralized all the enemies. Kamuro noticed that they all started falling from the trees like peanuts. Ale immediately ran up to them. Kamuro thanked her. The girl gave him a radiant smile. Vers decided to ask, in order to avoid all awkward situations, if Kamuro and Ale were dating. Ale happily asked her again. The guy replied that such a development was hardly possible. Ale was unhappy with what she heard. There were screams coming from some house. Someone asked the gentleman to come out as the guys who arrived are very strong. Ale asked who it was. Kamuro invited them to follow them to the backyard. Versa asked if these guys were ghosts and if that meant they were demonic creatures too. It was the first time she had seen that ghosts also used human weapons. Looking out the window, the guy said that it was pretty normal inside. He saw the calendar and smiled. Ale said there was a well further down. Kamuro wondered what kind of place it was and who lived here. A man with a mustache suddenly ran out, grazing Kamuro's chin. The guy leaned back. The stranger said it was quite painful, and he asked if the guy was from another world. Kamuro shouted how he found out about it. The man replied that he was very glad to see him. His name is Arens, and he is also from another world like Kamuro. His name is Dungeon Master Marquez. He had a round build with a big nose, big eyes, and curly hair decorated with carcasses. There is such a familiar native aura around the first person from another world whom Kamuro meets. The guy was smiling and felt an unprecedented tension in his chest. It was quite interesting. Meanwhile, Marquez was having a lively conversation with Versa. He told her that she was a very good monstrumologist. The girl thanked him. She said that dungeons should be classified as an automatic monster generator. He suggested that Versa spends a lot of time studying. A tired Kamuro said that he was very sorry to interrupt them, but whether it was dungeon or dungeon core, they used too much jargon. Versa offered to explain everything to him, and asked at what point he began not to understand what he was talking about. Kamuro was confused and replied that it had happened from the very beginning. The girl was nervous and discouraged. In the end, Kamuro realized that dungeons are not just caves with demonic creatures. Vers replied that this is how they are created with the help of clusters of subspaces. She asked if he understood her. Kamuro was at a loss and replied uncertainly that he understood. Vers noticed that even Ale understood everything. She seemed to be sitting quietly and listening to them. The guy looked at her and saw that the girl had fallen asleep. Kamuro said that Versa had just started accompanying them on their journey, so they had little information so far. Versa was outraged by his complacency. Marquez grinned and noticed that the guys were very close. The guy said that it's better to see once than to hear. Marquez will invite them to visit the dungeons and discuss travelers from other worlds. All 3 of them were very happy about this offer. The man told them that the entrance was in the ear trace room, so there was no need to go anywhere. He opened the door. A beautiful landscape opened up in front of them, as if from a vision. Endless blue sky, relentlessly capturing the horizon. The scorching sun, which radiates merciless heat, while demonic creatures frolic in their eating natural habitat. It was the first time Ale had seen such demonic creatures. Versa and Kamuro were also very surprised. After all, it was completely different from the Red Dragon Cave they were in. A dungeon is a space that is completely isolated from the rest of the world. In the vast echoes of the Marquez Sand Desert continue to teach them. The following landscape opened up in front of them. Kamuro shouted in surprise and asked what it was. Vers replied that it was a dungeon that was generated under the subspace. Marquez immediately confirmed her words. Marquez added that he wanted to explain a few things to them. Kamuro asked him to wait so that he could get his diary. Versa shouted at him to do it faster. Marquez said that usually demonic creatures don't come here, so you can take your time. Anyway, Kimuro doesn't remember any of the social tour. Marquez told them to follow him. The guy vaguely imagined that the dungeon was somewhere in a cave or underground, but it seems that dungeons are closely related to demonic creatures. In the diary, this was explained as follows. Its core is located at the bottom. The dungeon is the source of everything. The core creates demonic creatures as well as their status in the hierarchy. While Marquez manages the environment of the dungeon, Kimuro was very surprised. Marquez said that the core of the dungeon is a huge magic stone that acts as an energy source. For a magic stone to function, mana stones are needed inside demonic creatures. So Marquez extracted these mana stones from the creatures and burned them in the core as fuel. Kimuro noticed that it looked like a car engine. Ale asked what kind of mana stones they were. Ursa replied that there are mana stones inside all demonic creatures. She asked if he knew that. Thus, it is possible to distinguish demons from humans using the detection skill. This is due to the fact that the skill can detect mana stones in the body of demonic creatures. Vers turned to Marquez. The man asked what happened. She handed him a diary with notes about monsters from Lisa. Marquez asked what it was. The girl said it was a book, which was written by her mentor Lisa. She is very important to Vera. One of her mentor's colleagues described it this way, that demonic creatures created by the core have no shell. But after swallowing enough things, the creatures can materialize. Marquez was surprised and said that they probably did a whole lot of research. Versa replied that her mentor was a leading expert in the study of demonic creatures. She turned to the guy and said that the pack of Mazmascals they encountered in the forest were running away from Marquez-san, who released them as soon as they were formed on the island so that they could collect stones. Marquez asked if they understood what was going on. Versa said that the dead bodies of demonic creatures return to the respawn point. After that, she puts them in a magic stone. Kimuro thought that he did not know what to do because it turned out to be really difficult. Marquez asked if he understood everything. The guy grinned and thought that he was being asked exactly at the moment when he stopped understanding the essence of what was happening. Sensei amazes him with this. He decided that later he would ask Versu to explain everything that he did not understand. Kimuro turned around. He saw Versa fall to the ground. She said she was so hot and therefore couldn't move. The guy noticed that she was so excited. Marquez asked if they wanted to come back and if they were hungry. Ale asked if he would come back if she stayed a little longer. Kimuro asked why. She replied that she wanted to test her strength on demonic creatures. Ursa grinned and said she could kill as much as she wanted. Kimuro called Ale. She turned around and looked at him. The guy gave her things and said he was using them for extra protection. He added that they are not the same as his and are not perfect, but should protect her from unwanted injuries. The girl smiled and asked what happened to Kimuro. The guy replied that he wasn't quite sure. Ale looked at him questioningly and said that she understood. After Versa cooled off, Kimuro and Marquez went back to the house. The guy noticed that apparently there is a tea plantation in the well. Kimuro looked around and noticed that this place was slightly smaller than the desert, but it was the epitome of calmness. Kimuro asked if it was Marquez's job. He noticed that this place was quite calm. The man replied that he had been living for 300 years, and he had a lot of free time. The guy asked with extreme surprise if he had really lived for 300 years. Marquez said he was called here to defeat the Demon King. The image of the hero Marquez immediately surfaced in the guy's imagination. He says he was called into this world to defeat the Demon King. From the very beginning, he was very strong and loved his fellow elf. He had always taken skills only in the defense and resistance trees. His distribution method was similar to Kimuro's. On this day, the immortal body skill appeared in the tree. According to Marquez, he chose him on his head without a drop of doubt. They sat down on a bench and Marquez poured him tea. The man warned that it was hot. Kimuro thanked him. Suddenly, someone is attacking the guy. Kimuro dropped his mug of tea and the boiling water splashed on him. He shouted that he was hot. The attackers shouted at him to get away from their master. One of them fired an arrow, hitting Marquez in the head. She screamed that she had missed. Marquez shouted at them that they were trespassers, and the guy is his guest. They apologized and said they didn't know. Kimuro became convinced that the man is truly immortal. Marquez was outraged that despite his lucid explanations, they still did not get it. He ordered them to make tea for the guy as an apology. Later, tea was brought to him. Kimuro wondered how tea could be brewed so badly. Marquez said the guy's tailors do it terribly. The guy asked who they were. Marquez replied that the guys are high-ranking ghosts, they have high intelligence. Marquez uses them for guard duty and for small things. He ordered them to go. Kimuro noticed that they were very attached to the man. Marquez chuckled that they couldn't even make tea because they were just magical creatures. So they continued to communicate. Marquez said that, it turns out, the guy arrived in the world without even knowing his purpose. Kimuro replied that he works as an exterminator and travels the world. Marquez said he was very jealous of him because everyone expected him to defeat the demon, and 300 years ago he was younger. And now, remembering it, it seems that that was the brightest time. Kimuro said it was all youth. Marquez asked him again. The man said that maybe the guy was right because youth is usually spent with someone. Time passes, but the memories of the past are still vivid. The guy noticed that Marquez sounded like an old man. The man chuckled. He turned to the guy. Kimuro asked what it was. Marquez told him not to let his skills or status mislead him, even if it was a downgrade. He noticed that skills and status still make a person arrogant. Marquez only realized this when he lost his comrades. It didn't matter how much stronger he got. Marquez pointed to the guy's heart and said that's what he needed to make stronger. He asked him what would happen if the core was extracted from the dungeon. The man said that it would surely collapse, burying everything under it. At that moment he forgot what everything was for. He said that he had a request for Kimuro as a person from another world. The guy had a bad feeling, and he immediately guessed everything. Suddenly their conversation was interrupted. The ghost called Marquez. The man asked what the noise was. The ghost said that the snow foxes have multiplied enormously on the level again. Marquez had an idea. He asked if Kimuro could exterminate the pests. The guy immediately agreed. So he started packing. Vers asked if he would be in the polar zone. Kimuro replied that Marquez had asked him to reduce the population of snow foxes, which had greatly multiplied. If this is the case, then the ecosystem of the whole level will definitely decline. He asked what about Ale and Versa. Ale replied that she would go with the guy. Versa said she would pass because she didn't want to freeze to death and she needed to read some books. The guy noticed that Ale would do well to dress up since they are going to the polar zone. She asked if she could deduce this from her character. Kimuro replied that he did not. Kimuro told her to get ready. Marquez was watching them closely. The man saw in them the past of himself and his friends. He immediately smiled. Kimuro called the man. He said that destroying the snow foxes would take some time and asked if he would mind if they stayed with him temporarily. Marquez replied that he didn't mind at all. He smiled and added that he would gladly accept them. For years or hundreds of years, they could stay as long as they wanted. Kimuro said that you don't need that much and it's too much. The man chuckled and said that it was very rude of him. He added that he would leave the cooking to himself. Kimuro thanked him. So the guy's work began now in the dungeon. Kimuro went with Ale. They decided to make a pass. At that time, Versa was carefully reading a book. Marquez called the ghosts and asked them to bring him an apron and cooking supplies. They looked at him questioningly. So not only the man started cooking but also the ghosts who helped him hard. Marquez told someone to chop the vegetables finely, stir the soup for another, then he would add the seasonings himself. The ghost replied that he understood everything. Marquez noticed Ale and Kimuro. He saw that they had returned and asked if they were moving out now. The guy answered him positively. According to Marquez, there is a mushroom room in front of the polar zone. Magic stones are mainly mined there. Mushrooms of this level have a gigantism effect. The monsters extracted and carried away the much-grown traders of mushrooms. Everyone eats these mushroom eaters, which is why the monsters on the island are so huge. Ale and Kimuro put on warm capes. Marquez exclaimed that they were made of monster skins. Kimuro replied that he remembers meeting one and thought that his fur would be really useful in such a cold. Ale added that it was a little heavy, but it was very warm. Kimuro noticed that the thick hide retains heat perfectly and also interrupts the human smell. She is pure and enchanted by the magic circle. Marquez asked if such a fur coat would fit in a bag. The guy replied that there was a subspace in it, so everything could be stored there except for living beings. Marquez said he wouldn't be surprised if a war broke out around the bag. It's an artifact-level thing. Kimuro smiled and said that he was clearly exaggerating. The man was very glad that the bag was in the hands of the guy. Kimuro said they're on their way now. So during the journey, they were very surprised at how strong the snowstorm was. The guy noticed that in each zone it is really very different. Ale asked if they would be blown away. The snow was knee-deep. The guy couldn't really see anything because of the snowstorm. There was a solid silver world in that direction. Ale shouted to the guy that there might be a snow fox there. She asked if it was definitely him. The guy replied that he was. The girl said she would definitely chop him up. Kimuro told her to wait a bit. Later, they came back. A cooked dinner was waiting for them. Ale blushed and complained about the snow foxes. She was outraged that they were cowards hiding in the snow and not sticking out, and she couldn't beat any of them. Kimuro noticed that Ale had been drinking a little too much. Marquez grinned and said that everything happens on the first day. The guy asked if the man was drunk too. Ale said Kimuro is the only one sober here. She asked if he was weak. Marquez noticed that the guy was very cold. Kimuro replied that he had work tomorrow, so everyone continued to drink and have fun. The guy recalled Marquez's words and his request. Then he had a bad feeling. For sure, this is the desire of Marquez, who was burdened with the skill of immortality. He asked the guy to take his life. Naoki told Marquez that he was sorry, but he could not fulfill his request. He only pumps skills for his job, so he doesn't use other skills. He can't help a man. After a while, the man and the girl rested. Naoki thought that after the conversation in the morning, a distance had formed between him and Marquez. The man got up and went to the exit. Outside, he thanked the guys for their work. The guys asked Naoki what he wanted, but the man just called them. Later, he invited the guys to drink tea with him in a cool field. After a while, Naoki asked the guys why they look like elves, because they are not. He clarified that he was just curious, because ghosts used to have a human appearance. The ghosts told him that their master loved elves. The ghosts told Naoki about their life with Marquez. They said that although they are creatures with a high level of intelligence, they are gifted with all the knowledge of Marquez. They learned about everything by listening to his many stories. Elves were mentioned in his stories, so the ghosts took on an elven appearance. Marquez began to smile, so the ghosts did not change their appearance. The ghosts started complaining about Marquez and Naoki laughed. He even got a stomach ache from laughing. Then Naoki said he would tell the ghosts something. The next morning, Naoki and Isle set off. Naoki said that they would just be chasing snow foxes today, so they would act according to his plan. After a while, Isle made traps and asked Naoki what he would do with these little minks. Naoki said that first they needed the fur of a wild boar and its meat to roast and get a strong smell. Then they put it in a hole and hide. Yesterday, they slipped right into the snow from the girl's sword. Suddenly, minks appeared and began to fall into traps. Naoki told Isle not to stay too long. Isla rushed into battle. The guys started attacking the monsters. After a while, Isla and Naoki returned with 30 destroyed snow foxes and handed them over to Marquez. Then they drank in the evening and had fun. Later, Naoki went outside and met the ghosts. The next day, Isla and Naoki destroyed 78 monsters, and then destroyed more and more each time. Finally, the guys successfully completed the task and completed it in 20 days, and Isla and Marquez became friendly drinking buddies, and Versa said that she had completed 2 studies. Early in the morning, the guys said goodbye to Marquez. Naoki thanked him for his concern. Marquez said they hadn't had this much fun in a long time. Then he gave Naoki a lot of money and said it was a reward for the task. Isla told Naoki that he had lost in a round of rejections. Marquez told Naoki that if he meets an elven village on his way, he must find a girl named Sonia. Naoki agreed. He thought about the fact that they had not talked to Marquez thoroughly. Marquez wished Naoki well. Naoki thought about the wrong farewell to Marquez. After a while, Naoki stopped. The girls didn't understand what was wrong with him. Naoki ran to Marquez and called his name. After a while, Marquez and Naoki were sitting on a bench and talking. Marquez remembered the first time he and Naoki had tea with him. He tried to ask Naoki to fulfill a strange request, and therefore everything turned out awkwardly. Naoki said he was avoiding Marquez. Marquez noticed Naoki's behavior and then remembered his words that he could not save the man. Marquez said that Naoki was very quick-witted, and then he thought to escape from his empty life. Just a few months after his successful rescue, he lost everyone and found out that the Demon King was defeated by another brave man, and he realized that the immortality of knowledge is more important than the immortality of the body. However, time was merciless. He lost absolutely everything and was left alone. He had no desire left to do anything. Markle turned to Naoki and said he had shouldered something he shouldn't have, but he was also trying to make Naoki a murderer. Marquez apologized to Naoki. Later, Naoki returned to the girls and Marquez was left alone. The Marquis turned to the ghosts and said that eavesdropping was not good. Marquez stayed with the ghosts to drink tea. He tried it and was surprised by the taste. The ghosts said that Naoki taught them to make tea every night because if they make tea well, the man will be happy. Marquez recalled Naoki's words that the Geist tailors had taken on an elven form for him, because they also have feelings, so they can become comrades. Marquez thought about how the demons he was supposed to destroy had become his companions. Marquez began to cry. He thanked the ghosts for the tea. Marquez remembered Naoki and said that he had no mission and was not bound by any obligations, because he was a man reborn from another world. Naoki was an interesting person. After a while, Naoki returned to the ship and found something interesting. They saw a huge water snake. Magical creatures have a mind like a human, so a relationship can develop between them. At the moment, the 600-year-old dragon was towing Naoki's corral. This dragon girl smelled her boyfriend, the red dragon, and dragged herself after Naoki. The guys met her and realized that she wanted to say something. The blue dragon said that Naoki smelled like her boyfriend. Naoki didn't understand what she meant. She followed the scent of the magic stone that the red dragon had given them. The red dragon, the wyvern's natural enemy, so he slept endlessly instead of hunting, and the wyverns constantly attacked nearby villages. Naoki once suggested that the red dragon go on a journey, but he was very lazy. So the red dragon gave Naoki a magic stone and said he could find Naoki by the smell of the stone. Naoki gave the dragon a communication pouch to find each other without problems. So the guys are heading across the sea on a huge blue dragon to a new city. The girls were delighted with the speed. The blue dragon was tense because she was already 600 years old and the red dragon was her first boyfriend. The blue dragon said that her boyfriend was cheating on her. Naoki was very surprised. He thought that the red dragon was unlikely to cheat on her, but judging by the blue dragon, she was just jealous. Naoki thought about the feelings of the blue dragon and realized that dragons can fall in love. Ayla interrupted Naoki's thoughts and asked if he was feeling ill. The young man said that he had not slept well. Then Naoki said that there was such a problem that he was still a man. The girls were outraged. Naoki realized that his first crisis situation in another world was that he was a man. Naoki understood that even dragons fall in love, but when it comes to him, his head starts to hurt. Naoki understood from the words of the water dragon that the red dragon is not so simple. Naoki grabs the conversation and Ayla calls out to him. Naoki thinks that the red dragon has drawn him into his affairs of the heart, and he should show this place with girls. Naoki called the water dragon and said that if the red dragon was really cheating on him, then they should have a heart-to-heart talk with him. The blue dragon liked the young man's idea. They went ahead. Finally, they arrived in the city and were very surprised. The water dragon told me that this Korod is called Karia. Although it's daytime, it's very quiet. Naoki was also surprised by the transformation of the water dragon into a beautiful girl. The water dragon and Naoki went after the red dragon. Ayla and Sira also chased after the girl and the boy. After a while, they arrived at the house of the black dragon. Naoki burst into the building and called the red dragon. Suddenly, he heard the voice of the red dragon. The red dragon was sitting with other girls who were scared of the evil Naoki. Naoki realized that this guy is really playing with girls here and Naka is envious. The man said that the red dragon got him into trouble. Suddenly, Naka is interrupted by a water dragon who starts screaming at the red dragon. The red dragon gets scared at the sight of his girlfriend. The water dragon called the red dragon to the backyard to talk to her boyfriend. Ayla asked Naoki if he was okay. Naoki sighed and said that they had finally calmed down. Suddenly, the voice of a man was heard, who said that he went down to check the source of the noise but found a man. People rarely enter it. The dragon girls named the man the Black Dragon. Suddenly, the black dragon heard the cry of the water dragon, who screamed that she had come to check if the red dragon was cheating on her. The red dragon tried to talk himself out of it. The black dragon said that he seemed to understand everything. Ayla and Sira realized that the black dragon was ordering the other dragons, and it seemed that he was the boss here. The black dragon is thinking about Naoki. Naoki decided to leave, but the black dragon said that he had heard a lot from the red dragon. The young man is an adventurer, but at the same time he is engaged in cleaning and pest control. Naoki said that he was an exterminator, then the black dragon offered him to accept the quest from them. Naoki was surprised and asked if he really had a job from the dragon. He said it all depends on the conditions and they only live once. To be honest, he can't even imagine what kind of request such a request could be from a dragon. The black dragon said he was a little curious. Is it true that a person has such power that the red dragon began to tell others about it? Naoki said that if they just wanted to see what he was capable of, then he wasn't interested. The black dragon told Naoki not to worry, because he would only find out about Naoki's power himself. The black dragon realized that Kamuro Naoki has the 91st level. The black dragon said that Naoki is very different from other adventurers. He then apologizes to Naoki, and Naoki also apologizes to the black dragon. The black dragon wanted to offer Naoki a job. He offered him different terms, but Naoki didn't care. Then the black dragon offered the ship and the dragon cards. Naoki was surprised that the black dragon had a ship. Then the black dragon said that he still had one condition. It was a visit to the entertainment houses for Naoki. Naoki said he wanted to listen to the black dragon. In the end, the black dragon's task was to clear the city of wandering zombies and one dragon. Naoki decided to transgress immediately. The black dragon wants Naoki to clear the city of a bunch of zombies and one dragon. The dragon is currently in a cave in the vicinity of the city, but the entrance of this cave is sealed so that the poisonous fog does not leak out. It is very dangerous to fight with a dragon, so he will go alone. Ayla assumed that there was a zombie dragon in the cave. This time, get a task from the black dragon, but won't the black dragon be able to do everything himself? The black dragon said he couldn't do it, because the black dragon's girlfriend had turned into a zombie and he wanted Naoki to bury her. The girl's name is Dragon of Light and she is an old friend and mentor. The black dragon said that even among the dragons, she was a cut above all, terribly strong and fabulously beautiful. But one day some brave man wanted to fight with her and seriously wounded her, but for some reason did not finish her off and left her. Because of this wound, she became a zombie. She began to exude a poisonous mist, it struck the people around, and this place turned into a dead city infested with zombies. He thought it was just a quiet town, but it turned out that it was like in a zombie movie. Finally, the guys are ready to start. Naoki will take care of the dragon and the girls will take care of the zombies. Naoki thought that, in theory, the black dragon as a human should hate him as much as that fellow, but it turns out that his desire to help the dragon is stronger. Naoki will finish this job quickly. Sira asked Naoki how best to get rid of the zombies. Naoki said they would kill them with meat. Zombies can be controlled by the smell of meat. Ayla called Naoki and he thought that the girl wanted to go with him. Ayla said that it's not every day that you have the opportunity to fight with dragons. Naoki tried to dissuade Ayla, but she was against it. The man thought that the Dragon of Light was terribly strong. He said that this time the gas would be poisonous, so if it got on the skin, the girl would become a zombie. Ayla turned around and said she would go with him, no matter what he said. Naoki said that Ayla should follow his instructions. Then he turned to Vera and said that she would stay to deal with the zombies. Finally, they quickly completed all the preparations. Early the next morning, Naoki arrived at the cave with a black dragon. Naoki realized that there is a cave inside the hill, and there is a zombie dragon in the heart of the hill. The black dragon asked Naoki if he would break down the entrance, but Naoki said he wouldn't. He uses various devices in his work, but the wind can spread poisonous gas. He has an idea to do everything quickly and simply. The black dragon said that all dragons want stability in this world, and the Dragon of Light certainly does too. He's counting on Naoki. Naoki then draws a circle on the ground and asks Ayla if she is ready. Then they hit the road. At this time, Vers is studying zombies. She sprays some kind of remedy on them. The girl looks towards the mountain and realizes that they have already started. At this time, Ayla and Naoki burst into the cave, where there was a lot of smoke and a huge silhouette was visible. Finally, he saw the dragon and realized that it was huge. The cool dragon wasn't small either, but this dragon was much bigger. Then they realized that the dragon had noticed them. Ayla rushed forward and said that they would be able to strike first. Ayla rushes to the dragon and cuts its neck. Naoki finally realizes that she is still alive. Naoki realizes that the dragon's neck is thinner than a blade and he is going to spray a recovery potion. Ayla then uses the skill of walking through the air and strikes the dragon numerous times. Ayla was able to cut off the dragon's head by chopping in one place. Naoki realizes that there was no need to worry about her after all. After a while, Naoki told the black dragon that they had completed the task. Then he gave the black dragon the stone that was in the body of the Dragon of Light. The black dragon called this stone a parting gift. The next moment, with tears in his eyes, he turned into a dragon and flew away. Naoki said they should go too. Ayla said if she was really fit to be a comrade in arms. Naoki, of course, considered her a burden. Naoki didn't understand what she was talking about. When Devuka said she wanted to stay in Marquez's dungeon to fight huge monsters, the young man gave her strong clothes. She thought he was being very friendly to her, but today she realized something. Every day they fight monsters stronger than before. Maybe she would just become the baggage of a young man, so today the young man tried to distance her so that she would not get into danger. Naoki said that Ayla had thought wrongly about it. He didn't think about the girl being a burden. It's very safe and quiet where he came from, and they worry a lot if someone gets hurt. He is still horrified by how people calmly say that someone went into the forest and they were killed by goblins. If a girl dies because of him, he won't forgive himself. He didn't want that to happen and just tried to keep her and himself away. He apologizes to her. The girl apologized to the young man for having misunderstood him. It turns out that they misunderstood each other. Ayla said that she is a warrior and rushes into battle of her own free will. Even if she dies, it is only her responsibility and the young man has no reason to worry. Then the guys returned to the version. Naoki asked the girl how she was doing and then saw the zombies trying to keep up with a piece of meat in the water. Versa has run out of potion. She took the meat and threw it into the water, luring the zombies into the sea, and they all drowned. The next day they sailed. The black dragon thanked Naoki. The water dragon also said goodbye in Naoki. The black dragon gave them a map and a free ship as a reward. The guys hit the road. Naoki told the girls that he had a pleasant conversation with them. He said that as soon as they arrived in the city, he would go to the house for discernment. Versa said that it was quite natural for the male sex. She owes Naoki a favor. Ayla said that she also knows the value of gratitude. Then the girls attacked Naoki to repay their debt. Then they were seasick for 2 days on the ship, and they sailed to the port city of Flora. The accumulation of buildings indicated that the population density was high. He had heard that this bustling city was now a haven for adventurers. Then Naoki finished his business. He was in a hurry to go to the entertainment house, but then he could not even think that the most important meeting in his life would take place here, namely with the one who chose him after death and sent him to a new world. Naoki, Isla, and Versa were walking around the city. Naoki then went to the entertainment house. Isla had to find a hotel and Versa had to fix the ship. Then Naoki finds the right place and goes inside. There he sees an unsightly picture, namely a wounded girl. The owner of the house greeted the young man, but the girl who was trying to save her friend said that they were not ready to receive visitors. She cursed the adventurer who had done this atrocity to the girl. Naoki gave the girl a recovery potion to help her, but the girl thought it wouldn't help. Naoki said it was the purest potion and he made it himself, so there was no need to worry about money. Finally, the wound on the girl's body disappeared, but the scar will remain. Naoki took out a knife. He will try not to touch the skin and scrape off the scar and then pour more potions. Finally, the girl came to her senses. Naoki left the establishment. A girl called out to him and thanked him for saving her friend. Naoki asked where he could retire here. The girl took off her underwear and said that it was possible to retire over the hill. Naoki was surprised and confused. After a while, Naoki went to the hill outside the city and into the ruins of the church. He got a good item, but didn't figure out how to use it. Suddenly, someone calls out to Naoki. The stranger said that one day the young man asked if he was here. Naoki realized that the stranger was a god. Naoki's response was not very surprising. Naoki realized that God had a request for him. Suddenly, a strange man appears right next to them. The stranger asks God not to bounce back. God calls the stranger Chernobog. Chernobog says that he has business with Naoki. Then Chernobog notices the laundry in Naoki's hands. Naoki asked these two to explain themselves because events are moving fast. Naoki realized that God had a request for him. He doesn't understand what God wants to ask of him. God was going to show Naoki the state of this planet. Naoki sees a map of the world. God explains that this planet is in the shape of a ball, but is now divided into the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Chernobog said that there are bald patches in the northern hemisphere and that wastelands are spreading, and all because heroes and spirits do whatever they want. Then he points to the accumulation of mana, which made it impossible to use magic in the southern hemisphere. Mana is the most important source of energy for plants and monsters. The world has divided to contain the spread of damage. Chernobog would like to ask Naoki to deal with the mana accumulations and disperse them. Naoki suggested planting plants in mana clusters and using slimes. Chernobog was surprised when Naoki decided to use plants and monsters. Chernobog decided to try and disappeared into the sky. Then God asked Naoki how he imagined the heroes. Naoki said that the heroes are high-level, strong, they have a sense of justice, and some king tells them that he hopes for heroes. God says that heroes have nothing to do with the level and no one appoints them. The spirit blesses a person and makes him a hero. A person receives a blessing from the spirit and becomes a hero. The blessing gives him new powers, and those powers that were originally there are being pumped even more. God also says that the spirits have stopped obeying him. God wants Naoki to perform a sweep of the heroes. More precisely, he wants Naoki to complete a test from highly proliferated heroes scattered around the world. Naoki realized that God was ordering him to kill people, heroes and spirits scattered all over the world. God said that Naoki has no right to refuse because this is a divine revelation. Naoki accepted God's assignment. Naoki comes to the Merchants Guild. The young man says that he wants to create a company. Later at the hotel, Isla and Versa ask if Naoki really created the company to expand his activities. Along the way, people will come running to them. He thinks that if he searches all over the hemisphere for heroes, he will lose time. With the company, he will increase the staff who will be sent to every corner of the world. Then they will have an information network, and it will be easy to search for heroes. At the guild, he was told that he needed to enlist the support of someone who was already running a business in the city. Naoki went to ask the owner of that house. He gave him recovery potions. In addition, he was grateful to him for saving his employee and helped him out. You need to define your goals. First, the cleanup of the heroes. The second thing he should do as CEO is to first clean up the heroes, but God has said that measures can be taken in relation to the spirit. He just needs proof that the hero has lost his power. Naoki doesn't have a single idea yet which basic method he will use. Naoki thought that the heroes were very strong. If he says that he will send to get rid of them, then no one will obediently stand still. That's how he sees the carnage. Isla said that she would be the deputy CEO and Vers would be a researcher. Naoki was very surprised by the girl's words. The young man realized that he needed people, and Isle and Versa would be useful on his way, and Isle said not to worry. He had to resolve various issues. He didn't know much about the prices of goods in this world, so he entrusted the accounting department to Versa. 2 days later, the guild accepted their application as expected and contacted him. He went to the guild and got a merchant's certificate. He was told that he can do business with him anywhere. Finally, the company was established. Naoki never thought that he would become CEO. How glad he is. Then the guys went to have a snack. Naoki realized that more workers were needed, so they would look for comrades. Vers asked about the captain of the ship. Their ship, donated by the dragon, is now being repaired at the shipyard. Isla decided to train a new cadre, which will be useful both on land and at sea. Naoki finally decided which shots he wanted. He realized that in order to make himself known, he needed advertising. Isle and Versa have already gone to look for a person on this topic. He had already gone to the guild to post a recruitment announcement and at the same time ask if there were any quests available. After a while, Naoki and Isla met with Versa. The girl said that a real disaster had happened to them. The guards came and an outsider was found on their ship. Isla realized that an outsider wanted to steal the cargo. Naoki says they don't even have a cargo. Nakai went to inspect his ship. Naoki joined the company. The chief was warned that the master of the ship had come. The boss apologized to Naoki for the inconvenience and said that one agile feline beastman had made his way onto his ship. Nakai saw a thief, namely a young man in rags who came from afar. Suddenly, the young man rushed straight at Naoki. Naoki stopped the thief with dexterity. The head of the port said that the thief came from the village of cat owners on Lake Adur, and his name is Sesu. He says he broke into Naoki's ship because he wanted to become a fisherman. Sesu says that he wanted to discuss the possibility of hiring with the captain of the ship, because it became impossible to fish in the lake in his village. Naoki asked the thief's name and asked if he had the skill to steer a ship or at least cook. Sesu said that he had been trained in all this. Naoki said that then he would hire Sosa and appoint him captain of the ship. Sesu was very surprised by what Naoki said. As a result, Sesu was surprised that Naoki appointed him captain of the ship. Naoki held out his hand to Sez and shook from the fact that Naoki decided to help him. The girl notices the main character and calls out to him several times until he leaves. Upon hearing this, he approaches her, and then she tells him that there was a woman who wanted to get a job in his company, which causes a rather violent reaction. The hero turns back and sees that a horned beastman girl with a rather naive face is waiting for him there. She explains to him that she came from the village, and then he notices that she is all wet. Kamuro realizes that it's hot outside and wonders, looking at the girl, does she feel okay in a wool coat? Suddenly, she begins to hesitate and introduces herself as Murnock Zephyrsson. She says that she saw the ad and would like to get a job, after which she allows the hero to dispose of himself as he wants. In response, he immediately tries to slow down the course of events and interrupts Murmo. Then he says that he understood everything and agrees with it, after which he offers, first of all, at least to buy the girl normal clothes. After that, they go to the market. There, the hero introduces himself to Kamuro Naoki and greets Zephyrsson, who has joined the team. In response, she expresses her gratitude. She apologizes for almost fainting, as she was grazing goth spikes at home and had no other clothes. Then the hero understands what is the matter and allows her to choose good light clothes for herself. Upon hearing this, the girl joyfully starts running. The girl leaves and changes into other clothes. After a while, she goes out to Kamuro and informs him that she has returned. She admits that it's a little awkward for her to wear this because she's not used to it yet, but the hero is looking at her figure at this time. He thinks about the fact that she has quite powerful proportions and begins to worry about her. Kamuro then tells the girl that their friends are probably waiting for them and offers to go to them, to which she unconditionally agrees. Along the way, the hero awkwardly turns to Murmo and thanks her for coming to work for him. After that, sometime later, they arrive at their destination, where a table full of food was already waiting for them. The hero leans against the table and offers to give their new employees the floor without distracting from the meal. Then the guy with the ears immediately jumps up and introduces himself as the Beastman to Sesu from the tribe of Black Cats, originally from the village near Lake Adur, which is located across the desert in the north, and salutes. In response, the girl introduces herself to Murmo Zephyrsson and says that she responded to the vacancy and was interviewed by Mr. Kamuro, after which she adds that she knows how to sew and cook. Suddenly, a girl with long hair turns to the hero and says that in the end, only one person responded, and he replies that this is normal since no one knows about them at all. Then she decides to introduce herself, after which she tells that she is a warrior of the Isle and is looking for strong guys as well as traveling. She then adds that she has the titles Queen of Blades and Guardian of Dragons. Komuro clarifies if one of Aile's titles is not called Demon of Blades, but she replies that after the quest of the Black Dragon, the title has changed. Then she remembers that the dragon expressed his gratitude to her and assumes that the hero forgot about it. After that, the other girl introduces herself as Versa, a monster researcher who wants to devote his life to studying them. She says that she is friends with the hero who saved her and that she also received the title Keeper of Dragons. Upon hearing this, Komuro wonders why he doesn't have titles and opens the guild card. Realizing that there is nothing to be done about it, he decides not to worry and decides that it is his turn. Suddenly, Sesu interrupts him and asks if the girls have titles blocking the Mermo. The hero, having made a stone face, wonders if this is very cool, to which he responds by saying that there are not even a dozen of them in this country. Upon hearing this, Isle grins and says that there is nothing special about it, especially when Komuro is next to them. Versa agrees with her and adds that almost everyone feels like a weakling around the hero, which Sesu is very surprised at. After that, Aile asks Komuro about what level he is, to which he replies that it seems that 91I opens the guild card. Suddenly, a surprised version appears behind him, causing him to cry out in surprise. The hero says that Sesu and Mermo were stunned when they saw his map, but no one paid attention to them, since no one in the noisy tavern cared about them. Sesu begins to worry about who he will work for as a scout, and Mermo decides to ask what exactly the job of extermination means. Then the hero notices that the girl is a pretty responsible person. Then he tells me that a lot of Mosmaskals and Crimson have been divorced lately, and suggests that such a grotesque occupation as extermination may not appeal to the girl, since she will have to deal with bugs and blood. After that, Komuro asks her if she can handle it, when suddenly Sesu begins to feel sick from the fact that someone started talking about blood. Then Verse notices that this is not usually talked about at the table, but the hero replies that he needed to be informed about it. Suddenly, he is distracted by Mermo's reply. She says she adores it and admits that she trembles at the very thought of it. Upon hearing this, Versa informs that she thinks that she will master the dissection. The girl says that she once raised a poison spider, reminding that his bite is fatal, and admits that she could not even think that such a small bug could kill her. Since then, she began to like bugs. Mermo also suggests that she is not afraid of blood because she often delivered gossips. As soon as they started bleeding, she realized that labor was about to begin. From this, the girl concludes that she can handle the job, while the hero comes to realize what kind of psychopath he hired. A little time passes, and the dishes gradually become empty. Suddenly, Sesu remembers something and tells Komuro that he would really like to hear his performance. At first, he does not understand what he is talking about, but then he says that he was just going to explain himself. He takes a sip of beer, then raises his mug and introduces himself as the CEO of the Komuro company, Komuro Naoki, which makes the others delighted. Then the hero adds that he came from another world and was chosen by God, after which he came to this world. He says that he raised the company for the sake of a grand quest, the customer of which is God himself. From this, his comrades are shocked and for a moment fall into a stupor. Isle asks again, clarifying whether the hero has just said exactly about God, and Versa confirms her guesses. Komuro explained to everyone about that conversation with God at the hill about the state of the planet, about spirits, and about cleansing the world of heroes. After that, he makes a calm face and takes another sip of beer, as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, Komuro raises his mug again and suggests that the others exterminate the heroes, which makes the others furious and report that this is the first time they have heard about it. Some of them say that they do not understand anything, someone begins to believe that God really exists, and someone assumes that this is impossible for the hero, assuming that he is not lying about the conversation. Suddenly, Verse clarifies whether they really need to clear the world of heroes and put the Northern Hemisphere in order. Komuro replies to this that it is necessary to clean up the Northern Hemisphere first, and then the Southern one. For a while, the girl thinks about it, when suddenly it dawns on her that the hero will save the world. Upon hearing this, the hero is surprised at first, and then raises the mug again and offers the guys to save the world, which they are very surprised at. Then Komuro says that in this way they took up the task of clearing the world of heroes. After that, the story is transferred to the next day to the city center. The hero holds a card in front of him and the girls turn to him asking what it is. It was a map of the Black Dragon, which showed his house, desert, plain, forest, and flora, which is the current location. Komuro says that the mainland is clearly depicted in general terms, but the details are not drawn on the map. From this, he concludes that even if we collect all the information about the heroes, we will have to walk around. Then he tells his comrades that he and Versa will walk around the city, look at merchants and adventurers to find out about the heroes. The hero also adds that they will also tell about their company, and then Ale decides to go to the forest with Sesu. After that, Kamuro turns to Murmo and asks her to go to the hotel and make overalls for the company from a sample that he will give her. The girl is disappointed to realize that there will be nothing related to blood. Then Isle turns to Sek and invites him to move out. She's going to train him so that he can fight on land, which causes him a positive reaction. After that, Kamuro, along with Versa, goes to walk around the city. In the guild, the girl informs him that new information about the heroes has appeared. Then he and the girl talk a little while their comrades are in different places. At this time, Sesu is fighting the boar with all his might, but he is unable to defeat the beast. The boar pushes him away and makes him fall to the floor. Then Isle runs up to the guy to protect him and cuts the boar's body into 2 parts. She screams for him to hold onto the hilt of the sword, and he immediately obeys her. At the same time, Murmo examines the clothes and notices that they are quite well sewn, looking at the seam. Sometime later, the hero and Versa go beyond the walls surrounding the city. Kamuro notices that they took a walk so that they went out of the city, but the girl tells him not to worry since they have a map. Then she adds that she has accumulated skill points and asks him, as CEO, where she should invest them. Kamuro understands that she means skills and admits that he did not think about the distribution of points among subordinates. As a result, he allows them to distribute points wherever they want, since he does not really understand this and respects the wishes of his subordinates. The girl takes note of this. The hero opens the map and concludes that there is a forest and meadows in the direction they are going. From this, he concludes that there will be no people here and suggests returning back to the city. Suddenly, they begin to hear someone's voice trying to calm someone down. The guys turn around and see in front of them a cart with a man whose horse has gone berserk. Suddenly, she breaks free and starts rushing at them. The hero notices that this is the horse of a traveling merchant, and Vers calls him Fihers and notices that he is extremely furious. Kamuro asks her what they should do, in response to which the girl begins to resent and tells him to take down the horse. At the same moment, the beast is about to jump on the hero, but he makes one click from which the horse falls back. Suddenly, a merchant runs up to him and apologizes for what happened, asking if everything is all right with them. Then he approaches Vera, and the hero informs her that he will figure it out himself, which she agrees to. The merchant is a little surprised when suddenly the girl begins to voice her claims that his horse attacked her and ask if he understands what this means. At this time, the man tries to stop the hero. Kamuro walks up to the wagon and carefully pushes aside the cloth separating it from the contents, carefully peering inside. There he sees beaten boys and girls and reports that his guesses have been confirmed. The hero decides to approach the girls, and they ask about who he is, seeing that he does not look like a dealer in prohibited goods. Then he tells them that he saw their intelligence skills and asks them to calm down, since he is not going to sell or buy them. After which he thinks about the fact that they are exactly the same prohibited product. Suddenly, he turns his attention to a girl who has a fairly frequent cough. Kamuro then reports that he sees how ill she feels and decides to give her a recovery potion. The girl drinks the potion when suddenly the hero notices her beauty. Her white skin seemed transparent and her empty eyes were ready to devour him. It turned out to be a very beautiful woman. The girl reports that she feels better and expresses her gratitude, although her head still hurts. The hero is a little surprised that she has not fully recovered and concludes from this that she is damaged. Suddenly, the girl says that nothing will cure her, and Kamuro asks her again. Then she tells him that one day she will become a ghoul, which he is very surprised at. After that, he gets out of the cart and goes to Vera, informing her that he gave the people a recovery potion since they were weakened. In response, the girl notices that this is not the first time he has squandered this expensive thing. Then he asks Versa how she is doing, and she tells him that they talked to the dealer about local laws, according to which he is obliged to pay compensation if his animal has caused damage to someone. The hero says that negotiations are really better to trust her, when suddenly the girl adds that something else has hooked her. She says that fihorses are quite peaceful monsters, and therefore they are often used by traders. However, this individual is not so kind. Kamuro agrees with her, and then Versa tells her that she found the reason for this. She then shows the insect to the jar and explains that it was in the horse's ear. The girl says that this is a locust hopper which is found in deserts. Then the hero wonders, how did he end up in the forest? After that, they harness the cart and set off with the merchant. Kamuro offers him an escort if he goes to the city, to which he agrees. But suddenly the girl adds that they will charge him for this and for medicines later, and the man has no choice but to agree with this. After a while, they arrive and tell Isle about what happened, which she is surprised at. She concludes that such a small insect could drive Fihers crazy, although she hardly believed it. In response, the hero admits that he had not heard of such a thing on that continent. Then he asks about how everything went with his subordinates, and the girl tells him that she and Sesu went to the forest together. Ale also says that they trained with a sword there, defeated a bad monster. After that, Murmo talks about what she learned that one of the jumpsuits will be ready soon. The hero takes note of this and promises to attach the coat of arms, as well as strengthen it, so only he will be ready. Komuro then tells everyone that he has obtained information about the heroes, and Ale is surprised by this. He says that he took a dealer in prohibited goods to the city with Versa, in gratitude for which he shared information. The hero explains that the merchant told him that there is a hero nearby who is called the warrior hero. Then Ale asks if there is anything else that bothers him, and Komuro replies that yes. He points at the bug and says it's about him. Versa reminds that Komuro is an exterminator by profession and also notices that he is a big workaholic, in response to which he begins to laugh. Then Isle adds that Komuro has gained experience points on all sorts of Masmascars, after which he asks him to finish quickly since they have to get up early tomorrow. The hero is a little surprised that it is already so late and then suggests that everyone disperse. The comrades say goodbye to each other and wish good night, after which they go to their rooms, while the beetle remains lying in a glass jar all alone. A new day is coming and the guys are gathering in the city. The hero, hesitating a little, says that today he went to the guild to ask about the locust stopper. Then Isle assumes that he is still thinking about this case, and he replies that yes. Komuro says that there are similar beetles in his world that devour fields and cause huge damage, and Ale admits that he knows nothing about them, after which he asks Versa. She replies that she has read about them in the mentor's book, but has not met them herself. Komuro then suggests that this might be a good opportunity, and the girls ask him again. He says that while they are looking for heroes, they need to develop the company somehow. From this, the hero concludes that if, in addition to Masmaskals and Bagrotches, they learn to get rid of locust stoppers, then incomes will become more stable. Versa calls him very smart and begins to rejoice at the idea, while Isle notices that he looks more and more like the CEO every day. In response, the hero jokingly says that he needs to pay for their dinners somehow. Suddenly, Murmo turns to him and tells him that she came here about the jumpsuit. Komuro notices that he came out pretty well. Then the girl says that she tried it on, when suddenly her magic power went away and she fell. The hero is a little surprised by this, and Isle reports that this did not happen to her during the fitting. Versa and Sesu say that nothing happened to them either. Komuro then suggests that this may be an enhancement. Perhaps in order to wear it you need some amount of magical power, that is, a level or status. He turns to Murmo and says that today she will go with Ale to raise the level, after which he suggests that Sek go with them to hunt monsters. Komuro then asks them to go to Bronick, as their clothes are not suitable for combat, and they begin to rejoice. After that, the hero turns to Vera and asks what she will do. The girl replies that she will go with him, as she is interested in what locust stoppers are like. Komuro takes note of this and wishes everyone a good day's work. The guys agree with him. After that, the story is transferred to the Florence town hall. The hero approaches the girl with a question, and she tells him where to go. Then he goes to the stairs and goes down them with Versa. She notices that it's a little dark even for a basement, and begins to doubt that there are people here. Komuro replies that the girl on the watch told him so, and asked him to ask them about the locust stoppers. Suddenly, Vers notices some kind of glow ahead and points at it. The hero agrees with her and suggests that we need to move in that direction. When they get to the door, he decides to knock. Komuro then opens it slightly and greets someone inside the room, posing as exterminators with the girl. He adds that they were interested in locust stoppers, went to the guild, where they were advised to ask at the town hall. Upon hearing this, the man with the elf ears informs that he understood everything and asks the guys to come in. The hero introduces himself to Komuro Naoki, the CEO of Komuro, a company that deals with pest control, after which the man introduces himself as Riddle Bucks, the current head of the House of Bucks. Komuro immediately notices a luxurious room for one person, in which there are many books and documents related to the city. After that, he talked to Riddle and found out that he is the cousin of the king who rules here. The hero also notices that such an important person is studying all sorts of grasshoppers in the basement, which is why he assumes that he may be a little unhealthy. Suddenly, Riddle calls it a coincidence, because he was just rereading the material about locust stoppers, and Komuro asks what interested him so much. Then he says that 30 years ago these monsters appeared in huge numbers in the northern desert, and recalls that the records say that there were heavy rains in the desert right before this event. Then the man adds that just now he was also informed that a few days ago there were showers in the desert again. After hearing this, Versa understands something and approaches the hero, grabbing his clothes. Then he tells them that yesterday they met a van with a merchant who said that he was caught off guard by a sudden flood. Flash flooding is one of the most dangerous natural phenomena, and its feature is the rapid increase in water. Upon hearing this, the man immediately screams, asking the hero again, and then concludes that they cannot sit idly by. Suddenly, Kamuro's gaze changes and he realizes something. He puts together a single locust that he has recently discovered, records of previous years, recent rains, and begins to feel an indefinite anxiety begin to grow in Riddle and himself. Suddenly, the man turns to the hero and asks if he knows what a locust invasion is. In response, he replies that of course he knows about it. He recalls that the huge damage caused by them was reported from everywhere. Then the hero tells that due to changes in the habitat, the locust changes its color to yellow and black, representing a different phenotype with a different physiology and behavior. Then they unite in packs and devour all living things. Swarms of locusts are compared by people to a black cloud, since their invasion is such a terrible disaster that in ancient texts it was described as a sign of the end of the world. Then the hero understands everything and turns to Riddle. The man thinks about it and says that if it really is so, then the same tragedy will happen as 30 years ago. But then he suggests admitting the fact that this is just a hypothesis, and admits that he is not sure how much he can trust the data from 30 years ago. Then Riddle suggests starting to look for the reason first. The hero says that he is interested in the mechanism of the appearance of locust clouds and concludes that it is necessary to look for it quickly, that it be exterminated. Versa thinks about a means to kill locust stoppers and admits that she has not heard of such a thing before. Kamuro then asks her what she thinks about the flowers, and she assumes that he means the ones that grow here. The hero recalls that he used pyrethrum against small insects similar to caterpillars, cockroaches, and aphids, after which he tells that in his world pests were exterminated, including with the help of some flowers. Then Versa offers to find out about it, and Kamuro says that he is interested in the place where they met the dealer of prohibited goods, saying that they can go there first. When he hears that the hero is going to explore, Riddle asks about it, and the hero replies that it will be useful to him for his business. Then the man calls it a laudable statement, but still decides to warn that the work may be in vain. The hero decides that he will deal with this later, and the girl agrees with him. After that, he says goodbye to Riddle and tells the girl to move out as soon as possible, as he wants to meet with one person at the entrance to the city. She immediately understands who he is talking about. Kamuro was referring to an abandoned church outside the city, and the story is transferred there. He talks about how the search for heroes is progressing and all the other problems parallel to it. The girl is a little surprised that she was called here just for this. He says that he thought about the need to report something, and then she realizes that in his world he was a conscientious worker who told and reported everything about everything. Therefore, the girl calls him a good fellow and admits that this is the first time she sees such an adventurer. The hero is a little embarrassed and explains that he just did not want problems that could be due to self-will. The girl says that his thoughtfulness will surely attract many people of this world. Kamuro asks her again, but she replies that she is just talking to herself. Then she says that she has nothing against it, since God's cross is indefinite, but then admits that she wants the hero to resolve everything before the ecology of the northern hemisphere begins to deteriorate. Kamuro takes note of this. After that, the hero returns to Vera and calls out to her. The girl is a little surprised that he finished so quickly, and he suggests that she move on. He opens the map and points to the place where they encountered a dealer in prohibited goods yesterday, after which he says that it is worth looking into the desert to assess the situation there as well. In response, the girl sighs heavily, realizing how far it is. Then she is about to move out when suddenly Kamuro stops her, asking her to stop. He enchants her shoe with a magical seal that will create wind in her heels. Vers applies them, when suddenly the wind begins to push her, knocking her off her feet. The girl starts to fall when suddenly the hero catches her. He explains that you have to lean forward, thinking that she will soon get used to it. Then the frightened version begins to act more confidently. Kamuro then recalls an incident when a girl fell in the desert near Mars Rosa, but she replies that she does not remember such a thing. Suddenly she asks if the hero will run too, and he says yes. The hero remembers that despite the fact that he has 91 levels, he still has not run himself. Then he decides that this is a great opportunity to test his strength. Kamuro suggests that the girl go to the meeting place with the merchant, and she agrees. After that, they both activate the seals and start running at high speed. They leave behind only clouds of dust that can be seen from afar. After a while, the guys arrive at their destination. Vers notes that it was very fast, and Kimuro also calls the result not bad. Suddenly, the girl notices that at such a speed the hero is running along with him, which makes her wonder, how strong are his legs? He replies that he is not running with all his might yet, causing her to be extremely surprised. Suddenly, Versa begins to see something ahead and informs Kimuro about it. She points to the road ahead and says that there is a desert visible beyond the meadows. But the hero replies that everything seems to be fine. His search skill does not find clouds of locust stoppers, and therefore he is more worried about the forest. By this time, while they were talking, they already managed to get there and the girl notices it. The guys stop and Kimuro turns to Vera. He asks about what the dealer in illegal goods said then, and then she tells him that he assumed that the insect flew out of the bushes. According to the man, that's why Fihers went berserk, and the hero concludes that it was most likely locust stoppers. Then the girl sits down on the ground and starts rummaging in her bag in search of something. Then she arms herself with a net and turns into an insect hunter, offering Kimuro to start, which he agrees to without hesitation. Suddenly, he notices something small ahead and wonders if it's a locust stopper. The girl immediately begins to look around, and as soon as she notices the monster, immediately rushes to him. She starts trying to catch him by swinging a net, while Kimuro watches and grins, thinking that she must have fun chasing bugs. Suddenly, Versa turns to him and informs him that she has caught an insect, causing a smile on his face. But then the hero looks down and notices something. He gets down on the ground and says that he also has locust stoppers, which are full of them. The girl turns around and replies that she has more than one insect. At one point, she accidentally catches one monster that just jumps on her palm. Versa notices that he is very calm and that he has no aggression. From this, she concludes that the insect has not changed yet. Then the girl says that there shouldn't be so many of them at all, since locust stoppers are creatures that don't tend to pack. But then she adds that they generally live in the desert after all. Then a thought comes to the hero's mind, and he turns to Vera, assuming that this is a harbinger of an invasion of locusts. After that, they set up camp and begin an investigation. Kimuro says that he asked Versu to stay and look for flowers for their preparation, after which he went straight to the city to report everything. The story is transferred to Flora's town hall. The hero tells Riddle everything, and he concludes that the locust stoppers have changed. Kimuro also adds that his researcher is now looking for countermeasures in a hurry and says that there is still a chance of a tragedy, although it is too early to say now. But suddenly someone turns to Riddle and asks if he really trusts the hero. This was said by a tall dark elf with pointed ears standing next to a man. Riddle told Kimuro that this was his younger paternal brother, Jerry. He assumes that Kimuro is trying to gain their trust and starts yelling at his brother. He then adds that if Riddle ever needs help, he can just ask for help from him. The hero concludes that Jerry found it suspicious that he, as an unknown person, appeared so timely. Then Kimuro decides to show them the locust stopper from Fihers' ear and explain that their company wants to do disinfection. He also says that he helps Riddle because it is also beneficial for him and his comrades. Suddenly, Riddle himself screams that the hero is not an enemy, but an adventurer sent to him by the guild. Then he adds that no one else needs to fight monsters for which they don't give anything, and declares that the House of Bucks will use what it can, even if Kimuro turns out to be a charlatan. Then Jerry leaves, slamming the door. The hero smiles and thinks about what most likely really looks suspicious, especially in this form. Suddenly Riddle apologizes, thinking that Kimuro was unpleasant to see this, but he replies that nothing hurt him and adds that on the contrary, he is now very calm. The man is a little surprised, and then he says that he was afraid that Riddle, working for the benefit of the city alone in such a large room, would sooner or later fall off from wear and tear. But now the hero is glad that he has someone to take care of him. In response, the man starts laughing and says that Kimuro is worried for nothing. He says that this is his city and assures the hero that he will not lose to him. Riddle then asks him to follow him. They go outside, and the man addresses the residents. He reports that he is organizing a headquarters to combat the abnormal generation of locust stoppers. Riddle then adds that Kimuro shared useful information with him. Therefore, now the guild and the board will cooperate with the adventurers. The man says that this is necessary in order to prepare for the invasion of the demons of the desert. After that, the hero notices that the tension of the people quickly went away, and people quickly got down to business. He realizes that the residents trust Riddle and begins to dream of becoming the same boss as him. Suddenly, the man turns to him and offers to do business too, which he immediately agrees with. Thus, the Kimuro company took on a job on a scale it had never seen before. The story is transferred to the moment when the hero is walking through the streets of the city. Suddenly, he notices some noise and decides to look out from behind the gate. What Kimuro saw makes him fall into a stupor and freeze right on the spot. An impending flood appears before him. The hero is trying to find words to describe the situation when suddenly he is asked about what he saw there. The story shifts to the other side of the headquarters in front of the bar. Bottles and glasses begin to fly off the tables and fall to the floor, breaking into pieces. Kamuro immediately grabs Riddle to cover him in the right case. Hearing strange sounds, the hero decides to go and see what's going on there, and the man asks him to be careful. Kamuro leaves the room and carefully looks into another room, after which he is horrified by what is happening. There he sees a lot of men drinking, shouting, making noise, and brawling. One of them doubts that he will be paid to go and get rid of the locust hoppers. Then he jumps up and screams that they sailed here across the sea to earn extra money, after which he breaks the table with one blow. The owner of the bar turns to the hero and tells him that it is dangerous to go inside now, as he may die. Kamuro asks what is going on here, and then he tells him that travelers have come who want to earn extra money. Then the owner adds that a man from the headquarters has now come here and asked them for help in getting rid of the swarm of locust hoppers. However, this made the men furious and began to rebel. The host assumes that the hero has noticed this. One man screams that they can't even return now because of the storm, and then the other replies that they should go east past the mountains. But the first one objects, because he remembers that there is a checkpoint there that works only on passes, and he decides that he needs even more drinks. Suddenly, Riddle looks out from around the corner and asks the hero about what is happening here, and he replies that it is better for him not to go there. But at the same moment, someone throws a chair at the man, which breaks on the floor right next to him. Riddle jumps back with a scream and falls to the ground, which is why the hero rushes to him. He asks the man if he is okay, and fortunately the man replies that he is. Then Riddle points to the guys as something more important, and Kamuro tells them that they are seekers. The man takes note of this and notices that beginners really pick up on everything quickly, recognizing that information is the key to everything. Suddenly, the hero notices Vera and notices something in her hands. Then he asks what it is, and the girl tells him that she found a flower that locust can't stand. She then promises to try to collect even more, and Kamuro expresses his gratitude to her, asking her to continue in the same spirit, to which she happily agrees. The hero tells that his assistant told him that she had found a flower that these monsters could not stand, after which she went to collect some more. Riddle then decides to send a message to the guild to talk to the western florists. Kamuro thanks him for his help, when suddenly he turns back and is shocked. The hero immediately tenses up and looks out from behind the man, after which he also freezes in place. They begin to see clouds of smoke rising into the air. Suddenly, a guy runs up to Riddle and informs him that he has terrible news. Then the man turns to him and asks what else happened at such a time. The guy says that a group of adventurers broke into the shipyard, demanding a ship, that they had a fight with the workers and a riot. The hero already represents a man who attacks a worker while he is trying to prove that this is impossible. Riddle sighs heavily at this news and wonders, how did something like this happen? Then he decides that now it is important for everyone to unite so that the city works on a common problem with the invasion of locusts. Then the man adds that there is no washout from the current harsh actions and suggests that the seekers must not understand that now the residents of the city are facing a crisis. And the hero reports that he admits this possibility. Suddenly Kamuro thinks about something and decides to go to a bar, which is what Riddle says. However, he screams for the hero to stop, asking what his plan is. The guy tells me that there is something he wants to try, and a smile appears on his face. But Riddle does not understand what he is talking about and screams in surprise. After that, Kamuro leaves and the guy turns to the man. He asks what the hero is planning to do, to which Riddle confusedly replies that he has absolutely no ideas, just continuing to look after him. Chairs, tables, and dishes begin to fly in different directions, crashing against the walls and floor. The men who staged the riot cry out that they will never return to the city again. Some of them stay drinking on the floor, while others continue to smash. At this time, the hero enters the bar and looks around. Then he notices the terrified owner, who is horrified to see what his bar has become. Kamuro makes a questioning mumble, and then he asks why the hero returned here. Suddenly, he asks the owner if he can break just one table, promising to compensate for it later. In response, he expresses misunderstanding and therefore asks the hero again. Then he bends down and starts talking in his ear. Kamuro says that he is going to play a little show, admitting that he would appreciate it if a man would help him with this. The hero assumes that in this way they will be able to stop the rioters. Upon hearing this, the host does not believe these words at first, and then happily agrees with Kamuro, allowing him to do whatever he wants with the table. In response, the hero becomes more confident, and a calm smile appears on his face. Then he covers his face with his hands, and causes such a strange action to cause the corresponding reaction in the man. Suddenly, the hero still opens his face, and it becomes clear that his gaze has changed a lot. This makes the bar owner a little scared. Suddenly, Kimuro walks up to the table and raises his hand up, clenching it into a fist. He takes a swing and punches the table with all his might. After that, the furniture shatters into small pieces in different directions. Suddenly, next to the hero, a small explosion occurs in place of the table, the sound of which can be heard even to Riddle standing on the street. Then smoke begins to form around Kimuro, moving like a funnel, which makes the men look away from their activities and look towards the hero. Among the smoke, they notice a lonely little guy who broke a table. He turns to them and asks them what kind of seekers they are, since they don't even want to work on eliminating small monsters. From this, the hero concludes that all of them, apparently, still fell below those people who still decided to escape. In response, the men scream, asking who he is. One of them assumes that Kimuro is looking for a fight and calls him a child. However, the hero shouts over them and immediately silences the seekers. He then reveals that he is an F-rank seeker, but informs that even he is going to go to the desert and at least is proud of his strength. Suddenly, the hero's gaze changes and his voice becomes calmer. He starts to stretch his shoulder, asking the men how scared they are. The hero assumes that they are so nervous because F-rank tells them such things. Then he calls it funny and starts laughing. However, this makes the men furious and start shouting, asking who told him that they were not going to go to the desert and that they wanted to escape. Suddenly, one of the seekers says that he can't even guess what the hero is thinking, saying such a thing to the C-rank. They start to get more and more angry and look like they're about to attack Kimuro. Then he informs them that he will gladly fight with them if they want to go there. After which the owner still decides to look out from behind the table. Suddenly he cries out that the seekers should go to the desert if they are so upset. Then the man says that they cannot be called seekers if they are afraid of small bugs and asks them to prove that they are not afraid of it. From this, the patience of the seekers finally ends and they begin to scream. Then the hero stretches out his hand to protect the owner from them while he hides back behind the counter. Suddenly, the men cry out that they should not underestimate them, after which they begin to run out of the bar. Someone is surprised that the hero thought that they were really scared by the locust stoppers and suggests that the others go to the guild. The men are going to call more guys, agreeing with each other. In addition, they call the hero only F-rank and a child, after which they finally leave the room. Kimuro doesn't answer them and just stands there in silence. Suddenly, a sinister, satisfied smile appears on his face, but in a moment his expression becomes kinder. Then the hero turns to the owner and gives him a thumbs up, saying that his plan worked after all. In response, the man does the same and exhales in relief, while a lot of sweat drops from his forehead. Riddle turns to the hero and says that it is very good that the seekers who staged the riot have left, but then asks him about what he did to them at all. This makes Kimuro think for a while. Laughing at the same time, he says that he only stimulated their adventurous spirit, which eventually lit a fire in them. The man thinks about the fact that he stimulated it and assumes with horror that he turned the seekers against himself. The hero replies that, and adds that the men immediately fell for this trick, as they were under the influence of alcohol and therefore even stopped fighting. Riddle is very surprised by this and admits that he does not understand how he came up with such a thing. After that, Kimuro turns to the man and suggests that he go back to headquarters as they need to settle some business, which immediately distracts him from his thoughts. The hero tells them that they will need to equip the device with a pump that can dose a large amount of insecticide. He then adds that this device is called a nebulizer. After that, Kimuro says that they also need their masks, as severe sandstorms can become a big difficulty. Suddenly, Riddle remembers something and treats the hero. The man asks him how many people will be needed for all this. The hero replies that frankly, he has no idea. He says that everything will depend on the scale and recalls that even after looking at the records of previous years, he did not find anything about the scale of the locust stopper cloud. Then fear begins to appear in the man's eyes, and he asks if they will all be able to stop the invasion of insects at all. It begins to seem to the hero that he wants to be sure that everything will work out for them and that the city will be left alone. Kimuro notices that Riddle is usually always calm and polite. Now he realizes that he is also very worried. He is well aware that the fate of the city is in the hands of a man since he has been keeping order here for many years. Then the hero decides that he can only say what is not impossible. He admits that he has never heard that people, without any losses to the city, could repel a locust attack. Then he apologizes to Riddle in advance and informs him that he would like to say something that would give a 100% guarantee. However, he asks him not to apologize, assuring him that everything is fine. After that, the man sighs heavily and lowers his head. Kimuro sees this and decides to say something. He reminds me that he arrived in this city after a long journey. The hero tells us that locusts have caused damage in the past too, which is why many countries and regions have suffered huge losses. Then he remembers that even when a plan was developed to counter them, he did not give a 100% guarantee. Komuro realizes that back then, people simply had no choice and had to just wait for the black storm to end. After that, crops and other plants simply disappeared. Then people were just left with nothing. Suddenly there is an awkward pause in the conversation, but after a few seconds it is interrupted by Riddle. After listening to the hero's story, he concludes that it is impossible to stop the invasion of insects and lowers his head again. Upon hearing this, Komuro glances to the side and thinks about something. He remembers different moments from his life. The moment of the Big Bang, the ritual with Isle, and the run to the meeting place with the merchant with Versa. Then Komuro tells the man that they may have a chance in this world, which immediately changes the man's look. The hero holds out his hand to him, and Riddle raises his head to look at him after hearing such unexpected words. Suddenly Komuro feels awkward, and he puts his hand on the back of his head, informing him that he has not made any mistakes yet, no matter what he is doing here. Then the man turns to him and says that everything is clear now. Riddle realizes that if they give up now, then everything will be over, and the hero agrees with him, saying that this is true. After that, he glances up and thinks about something again. Komuro thinks it's time to get to work. He is preparing to do a tremendous amount of work and assumes that he will most likely be very busy. The hero tells that he had a short stop in the city of Flura during their journey. In this city, he said, there was someone who called Komuro there an evil god. The hero decided to accept the request of God, which was related to the destruction of heroes, and also learned about the impending disaster in the city. They were locust stoppers. After a while, the flock of small insects grew into billions due to polyphenism. Now they will devour everything in their path. Komuro also says that polyphenism is a change in the body shape or behavior of a living organism due to certain environmental factors. Nothing could be done in his world at the moment, but in this world it could be fixed. Therefore, as an exterminator in the past, he was extremely interested in this task. Now his company Komuro is challenging this difficult task, although no one knows yet what exactly to solve it. Then Komuro remembers about the dragon card. He says that just outside the desert there is a camp in a meadow. It is now run by Vers, who created the pentagram and built a bonfire to heat the potion. She is thinking about something when suddenly an excited Isle runs up to her. She eagerly asks if the contents of that test tube are supposed to kill the locust stoppers. From this, Vers gets scared and screams. She reports that she was very scared, and then the girl apologizes. Isle says that she heard from the hero that the girl is here to explore the possibilities for different pesticides. Komuro asked her to stop by Versa's to see how things were going, and then Ale immediately asks about it. Versa says that she found a smell that locust stoppers do not tolerate, but immediately adds that it is not fatal for them yet. Then she pours the potion on several insect specimens in the sphere, and Ale is surprised by this. Then she assumes that they don't have a way to kill the locust stoppers right away, and Versa agrees with her, saying that's why they need to keep looking for materials. Then she gets to her feet and asks Isle what she wants from her at all. The girl says that Komuro asked her to guard Versu while she is here, and at the same time to train Mermo and Sessa in the forest. Suddenly, they begin to hear someone's voice and turn in the direction from which the sound is coming. In the distance, Isle begins to see two small people and immediately recognizes them, which makes her smile. Sessu comes out onto the plain and informs them that they have returned. Then Mermo comes out after him and confesses that she wants to die now, but then interrupts herself and informs him that she is not the only one who wants this. Isle begins to get indignant and asks how the guys got tired of a simple walk in the desert. She then recalls that Komuro made it clear that they needed to increase their stats so that the guys could wear their uniforms. In response, Mermo screams that she saw something terrible in the desert. She talks about huge poisonous scorpions and desert salamanders. Then Isle realizes that there were monsters there and immediately changes his tone. She informs them that this is exactly the training they need, admitting that she wants to take a look at it herself. Upon hearing this, the guys immediately scream that they do not want this, because they think that in this case they will die from monsters or from fatigue. Then Isle says that they need to be sure that their employees are working properly. She decides that they have had enough rest and tells them to go back. In response, the guys call her a demon, while Versa thinks that the girl can rather be called a gladiator. Then the guy and the girl decide to just run away from Isle, and she asks where they are going. Suddenly, Versa asks her if the hero is in the city right now, and she replies that yes, after which she adds that he is doing well. Suddenly, the branches of trees and bushes begin to rustle even louder, and this makes the girl notice that the wind is getting stronger. Then she glances to the side and starts looking at the sky. The girl notices that the clouds look menacing, and they are also moving towards the city. The wind starts to blow even harder, and Isle suggests that maybe it will rain a little. After that, the story is transferred to the city of Flura, specifically to Ridal's room. There, he and Kimuro study a large map on a table amid scattered boxes and documents. The man talks to him about the shipyard, florists, and churches. He then reminds them that adventurers are also cooperating with them. Ridal then concludes that the first steps to destroy the locusts will be to unite the guild members or even the entire city. The hero remembers that they also need to create a method of destroying locusts, and the man decides to start with this. The main character tells that torrential rains lead to flash floods, and that this can cause a huge outbreak of insects that have been subjected to polyphenism and which are attacking the city. Kimuro thinks that it would be worth hiring some outstanding magicians in order to use flame magic. This may allow people to turn a swarm of insects into a pile of ashes. However, the hero is inclined to believe that this option will not work. He then approaches Ridal, who asks if it is possible that this will be the last time. The man says that therefore it is advisable to prepare well and find those people who will be able to keep locusts for a long time. The hero admits that this kind of locust actually amazes him, after which he remembers that he heard people talking about their flock growing from several hundred to billions. Upon hearing such a number, the man screams. Kimuro then assumes that a swarm of locusts will come from the desert to the city and tells him that he is interested in what environmental factors lead to such a growth of the flock, although the most basic problem is to contain them in the desert. Ridal takes note of this, and the hero remembers that the flower he found looked like space. After that, he tells the man that he is preparing a repellent in the next room. Kimuro suggests using the flower that his assistant found, as the locust stoppers hate him. The guys boil it to get a concentrated solution, but they see that this is not enough to kill them. The hero realizes that this sounds like an excuse and looks down, becoming sadder. He thinks it would be the same if he said in plain text that he had no solution at all. But suddenly Ridal turns to him and asks him not to make such a face, because it's still better to have this solution than to have nothing. He then adds that if they look depressed, their subordinates will also lose heart. From these words, the hero's gaze immediately changes and he calls out to the man. Kimuro then agrees with this, saying that he is right. Then Ridal asks him how many people they will need in the desert. The hero tells them that they will need to use a spray gun, and the man remembers that this is exactly the thing he was talking about. Kimuro says that they will need a person who can repel the attack of part of the insect flock, as well as a group of 4 people with a healer. From this, he concludes that in total they will need about 40 elite warriors. Suddenly, he is interrupted by a knock on the door from the other side. At the same moment it opens, and a guy looks out from behind it, asking if there is a so-called Kimuro, after which he introduces himself as the commander of the shipyard. The guy also asks if the guys needed something from them, and then the hero replies that yes, because he called him. At this time, Ridal makes an uncomprehending expression on his face, as he has no idea what is happening right now. Then Kimuro says that with the help of materials that he collected from the monsters in advance, he tried to make a spray gun. Then he takes out the device and uses water to show how it works, thinking that this is exactly what they need. Suddenly, the hero turns to the guy and assumes that they have some kind of craft skills since he makes ships. Kimuro then says that he has prepared the materials for him to make 11 or 12 pieces of the same sprayers, asking if it will work. The guy admits that he sees this for the first time, but realizes that this object looks simple. Then he clarifies whether this can be considered a request for the shipyard, when suddenly the hero turns to Ridola. He asks the man if it is possible to provide compensation to these guys, to which he gives his permission. The hero says that the people at the shipyard just have the crafting skill and reminds them that right now they themselves need labor. Suddenly, the guy remembers about a bad man in blue clothes and screams about it. Kimuro asks him again, and then he remembers that the hero had calmed the group of seekers before. He says that these were the very seekers who went to the shipyard and asked for their ship back. Then the guy adds that Kimuro helped them a lot and expresses his gratitude, after which he understands what is the matter. Then a smile appears on the hero's face, and he offers to get to work. The guy starts to look at the sprayer and notices that it is a very interesting tool. Then he adds that it's cool if they're going to test it on monsters like this, and decides that it's okay anyway since he'll also get paid. At this time, Ridal turns to the girl who came up from behind. He tells her to go get ready and promises that she will get a small bonus from him, which she begins to rejoice at. After that, the hero goes to the camp in the clearing. There he shows the assistants a map and tells them about his plan, after which all the guys gather into one friendly, cohesive team. They come to the florist girl, who remembers that Ridal had just asked her for a small favor. The man immediately remembers this and asks the girl to give him what she has prepared. Looking at this, the hero smiles faintly, and his soul becomes calmer. By his movements, it becomes clear that Kimuro is starting to feel more confident. A little time passes from this point on. Suddenly, the hero's calmness is interrupted by some noise that makes him alert. Riddle approaches him and asks if he heard anything or if he imagined it. However, the sounds do not stop and continue to be heard, which makes it clear that it did not seem to the man. Kimuro then grabs Riddle by the hand and starts leading him down the stairs while he asks where he went. But the hero just keeps going on. Kimuro notices people arguing about something on the street. The man tells how he heard that the adventurers were talking about getting rid of a swarm of locusts and asks what they will do in the end. Then the girl screams, asking the guy where the general staff is looking, in response to which he asks her to calm down, convincing her that everything will be resolved soon. The main character and Riddle pass by a crowd of people who shout that if they are overtaken by a swarm, they want them to have the opportunity to live on, worrying about themselves. The residents of the city are worried about what will happen to them if the monsters eventually come and whether this will be the end for them. At this time, Kimuro and Riddle approach the exit and the city. The hero casts his gaze up with him and notices large rain clouds. He understands that the omen has become a reality. The man says that it started raining heavily at such a time and suggests that it will probably happen faster this time. Then he turns to Kimuro and tells him to hurry up, which he agrees to without hesitation. Night follows day, and the main character goes to Riddle using the seal he shared with Versa. There, the florist girl informs him that she brought the flowers they ordered and asks if everything suits him. Kimuro expresses his gratitude, but then admits that he thought there would be more of them, and the girl replies that unfortunately, these are not particularly popular flowers, and therefore there was only so much in their warehouse. Then the hero decides to go and collect more flowers, after which he asks the others to stay in the building, since it is dangerous to go at night and it is better for him to go alone. But suddenly he is stopped by Riddle, who reminds him that he has been plowing for 4 days without rest. He asks Kimuro if he is sure that everything is fine with his body, and Kimuro replies that everything is fine, asking the man not to worry. After that, they pay for the florist's work, and the hero runs to where these flowers grow to collect even more. In a clearing, under the cover of night, he looks for such flowers with a smile and collects them with a smile on his face. After a while, he comes back to the city and enters a large building on which there is a sign saying that the entrance is closed for the whole day. Once inside, Kimuro announces that he has returned, but however, no one gives him an answer and does not meet him. Then he goes down the stairs and opens one of the doors of the rooms. At first, the hero enters Riddle's room, but there is no one there, it turns out. Then he checks the adjoining room, but it turns out to be empty. Kimuro is very surprised by this when he suddenly remembers that everyone here works at a certain time. At this time, one of the workers meets him in the corridor, who screams in surprise. She is surprised that the hero returned so quickly, and he greets her in return. They start walking down the stairs, and he asks where everyone has gone. Then the girl smiles and begins to answer, but does not have time to finish when suddenly they come. Kimuro meets a lot of people who work and are surprised to see him. One of them, a man with short hair, turns around and begins to rejoice that the hero has finally returned. Then Riddle comes up to him and he asks him what is going on. Then the man says that he thought that for his work they should feed him delicious food. But the hero says that it's too late for such gatherings, which makes the other employees start laughing. He admits that he doesn't understand what he's talking about and says that no one could leave until they thanked him properly, and that's the only reason. He then adds that if Kimuro has problems and needs help, he can contact them, but Riddle still decides to talk about it later. Suddenly, the hero is a little surprised and asks if it is normal that Riddle kept his employees late today, as he has a feeling that he is exploiting them. But in response, the man begins to laugh. He assures the hero that everything is fine because they themselves were not against it, and then adds that this is an opportunity to once again distract from the thought of locust stoppers. After that, after a while, the workers prepare the food and set the table. The hero tastes the food and screams at how delicious it is. The sandwich he tasted was as delicious as possible, and Kimuro felt as if he had eaten anchovies. The man agrees with him, saying that their city has the most delicious fish. After the meal, Riddle and the main character sit down on a bench, while the workers remain standing at the table and discuss something violently. The man lowers his head and asks if he could cheer up a little, forcing him to turn around. Kimuro makes a questioning mumble, and then Riddle explains that he thought the hero looked pretty tired. The man remembers how the hero announced that he would go to collect even more flowers, and that as soon as the sun rises, he will leave again. Then he says that after Kimuro left, the workers noticed that he was working hard and without rest at all, although he did not even live here. After that, Riddle brought up a rather interesting conversation. He says that after this conversation, he had a lot of questions that were related to why the hero was doing so much for them. But he suddenly screams that he is doing everything as usual and convinces that this is just his desire. The hero says that he is grateful to them for such a warm welcome, but then he still admits that he was too full of enthusiasm. Then Riddle thinks about something and asks him why he thinks so. Kamuro says that he is used to destroying monsters like hornets and cockroaches, when suddenly the man notices that these are not the things that are clearly worth discussing during a meal, which is why he begins to apologize. Then the hero continues his story and says that for the first time he destroys locust stoppers, and therefore it was quite difficult for him to see the whole picture. He awkwardly admits that he did not think then that everything would be so difficult. In response, Riddle informs him that he understands everything, and then Kamuro, a little surprised by such words, asks what he thinks about this in such a case. Riddle tells the main character that even if he doesn't know what lies ahead, he still has to keep in mind that there are moments that need to be passed through. He then adds that they are not particularly strong seekers, but still assures him that Kamuro can rely on them. The hero freezes at first, but then jumps up and goes to the workers. He distracts them by asking if they can spare him a minute, and they immediately begin to wonder what happened. The hero explains that as soon as they finish the meal, he will need capable guys. He asks them to help him with the flowers in the basement, and from this turn a calm smile suddenly appears on Riddle's face. The workers take turns responding to Kamuro, saying that he can rely on them. Suddenly, the man informs them that they will make a pesticide that can be dangerous. And then the hero, a little embarrassed, decides to politely ask the workers to take masks with them. After that, the story shifts to the next morning. The guy points to a horse-drawn cart full of sprayers, telling the hero that it was all done by shipyard workers. From this, Kamuro is pleasantly surprised and begins to examine one of the objects. He calls it a good job, as everything is done quite efficiently. Then the hero tells that after they found an employee and gave him a mask template, the entire order was completed in the right quantity. Also, they then reinforced these masks with antiparticle magic to make them more effective. Kamuro recalls that Jerry also brought priests from the church, thereby making them very angry. Then he said with an important look that he was doing all this not for the hero, but for his younger brother, for which Kamuro expressed great gratitude. After that, the hero entrusts the work with the pesticide to Riddle workers and leaves, asking them to be careful. After a while, a crowd of fighters gathers on the street right in front of him, ready for battle. The hero sits down on his knees in front of them and begins to meditate. Suddenly, the men begin to be outraged, as they learn that he deliberately drove them out of themselves in order to cooperate with them, and that the owner of the bar also played along with him. In response, Kamuro begins to apologize to them for what he did and what happened in general. He tells them that right now they need the help of every adventurer, and therefore politely asks them to lend their strength. One of the angry men suddenly stops talking, thinking about what to say, when suddenly his friend asks what they should do. Then he still decides to agree and informs that the Seekers will help the hero. But then he announces the conditions, saying that when the work is finished, they want Kamuro to spar with them. In response, the hero immediately agrees, adding that this is not a problem for him. Then the man screams for the others to be ready to crush the whole swarm of locusts, asking the guys about it. In response, they begin to shout very loudly, agreeing with him. After that, the story is transferred to the city center, where preparations for the destruction of locusts are already underway. The workers rearrange the barrels, and Riddle asks them to be more careful since they contain a remedy for locust stoppers. Seeing such a good working environment, the hero smiles and begins to feel more confident. He pays attention to the number of barrels and notices that there are quite a lot of them and should be enough. After that, he turns to Vera and asks how she is doing, picking up a small bag. But suddenly she starts screaming that she has done something, causing him to get scared and tremble from screaming. At the same moment, the girl herself appears in front of the hero, who tells him that she has found a plant that can destroy locusts. She then clarifies that this plant is a magical Bayura. At first, the hero is surprised, but then he clenches his hand into a fist and tells Vera that she has done a good job. Then he also tells Riddle that his assistant has found a flower that can kill locust stoppers. So now he decides to head to the camp and collect some of them. The man takes note of this and wishes him good luck. But then he screams that he is going with Kamuro. Suddenly, at this time, it starts to rain in the city and the first drops begin to fall from the sky to the ground. She falls to the ground right next to the hero, causing him to be distracted. Kamuro raises his head to look at him and begins to see a lot of drops begin to fall on him and Riddle. This makes him even more wary. The main character makes a dash towards the gate to the city and remembers the way to the camp. Outside the city, on the way towards the forest just into the clearing. He ran towards Versailles with all his might as he realized that they didn't have much time left. After a while, Kamuro arrives, and the girl greets him with joy as soon as she notices that he has come. She begins to wave her hand at him so that she is also noticed more quickly, after which she points out that the hero is working tirelessly. He notices the same thing in response, and says that he rushed here as soon as he found out that she had made a pesticide. Then Versa admits that he thinks it would be faster to see for yourself, and therefore suggests that he conduct an experiment. The hero thinks about it and still agrees. He notices a large cauldron hanging over the fire, after which he looks in and begins to hear the sounds of bubbling boiling coming from there. Then Kamuro decides to ask what is underneath, when suddenly the girl asks him to take off his glove and give her the back of his hand. The hero is a little surprised by such a request, but decides to fulfill it. He asks about what is in the saucer, but she does not answer him because she is too busy and pours the liquid on his hand. Suddenly, the hero starts shouting that it's very hot, but Vers becomes dissatisfied with the fact that he's just hot. Then she concludes that even if this decoction can kill a Saran, it will have no effect on anything with a huge amount of mana. For example, like Kamuro. The hero says that it's not very pleasant that she did it without warning, but he replies that she already knew in advance that everything would be fine with him. Then she points to the plant and says that this is exactly what was lying at the bottom of the cauldron. Versa says that it can drain mana and therefore gives it the name Magic Sucker. The hero makes a rather amazed face and also glances at this plant. Then the girl tells that Ale and the others found a magic suction cup during a training session in the desert in some flooded place. Then the hero concludes that now they are still gaining even more of this plant there. Suddenly, Vers says that all monsters are unchangeable and each has a magic stone inside, which is destroyed when its owner dies. The hero agrees with her since he has nothing else to say. Suddenly, the girl adds that the plant she found is what they need, since it sucks mana out of the magic stone, after which it takes one locust stopper out of the jar and puts it on the ground. She asks Kamuro to take a look and pours the insect with the liquid she cooked from a spoon. After that, it dies, falling on its back, and smoke begins to come out of its mouth. The hero notices that when Versa dropped the mixture on the locust, first there was a sound of cotton, and then, with her last breath, an unusual red smoke came out of the locust's mouth. Kamuro cries out in surprise that the insect has died and jumps up. Then the girl says that for such a small monster, a drop is more than enough, pleasantly surprised by this. She says that with the help of a magic sucker, 1 drop per monster with a small mana, his mana evaporates instantly, noting the simplicity of this recipe and its economy, unlike others. However, then Versa adds that the only ones who can use this mixture are Kamuro and Isle, while Sesu and Mr. Remo will not be able to use it due to exposure. She explains that even she gets a headache from 1 drop. Then the hero clarifies whether she wants to say that not everyone will be able to use this pesticide, and the girl replies that yes. She then apologizes to Kamuro and suggests that they have almost no time left before the insect invasion. The girl believes that if she hadn't had to spend so much time searching for plants, she would have come up with something to improve the remedy for locusts. But the hero begins to convince her that everything is actually fine. However, Vers reports that he is completely mistaken and says that a chemical that can be used by a small number of people, and therefore believes that the experiment can be called a failure. She concludes that her research was not so good and becomes very sad, lowering her head. From these words, the hero's face becomes extremely surprised, but then he decides that he needs to defuse the situation. He asks her if she thinks she's being too hard on herself since, in his opinion, the girl is the best scientist, especially when it comes to monsters. Vers is a little surprised and asks if he really thinks that. Then she turns around and reports that there is something else that she could find, after which she gets into her backpack. Then Versa takes out an object and says that she found it, while the hero notices that it looks like a watering can. Suddenly, he realizes that she keeps a watering can and an insect net in her backpack. He finds it funny and starts laughing sweetly at the thought of it, looking at the girl. Suddenly, the girl remembers something and reports that she realized how to make it so that locusts could die in large numbers at once. From this, the hero is shocked and immediately asks how this can be done. Then they decide to conduct another experiment so that Vers can show it in a visual way. The girl creates an improved magic circle on the ground, and Kamuro immediately notices it. The hero tells that inside this circle they put a plant from which insects will not be able to get out, and it begins to seem to him that somewhere he has already seen a similar bush. He is reminded of this tumbleweed from Western movies, when suddenly a girl distracts him from his thoughts. She tells me that in this world this thing is called a flyer, and that she and Ale, Sesu and Mermo found it in the desert. Then Versa adds that if it starts to rain, the locust stoppers will try to hide in such places, and then will not be able to get out of them. Then the girl pours water on the insect, making it feel like rain. Then, in an attempt to hide from the unpleasant jets of water, he begins to run to the bats and therefore falls into the trap that the girl created. The main character is surprised by what he saw and notices that the monsters really gathered in a tumbleweed, as the girl said earlier. Then she asks him how he thinks, how they feel when they are suddenly shoved into an enclosed space. The hero assumes that the insects feel excitement or something similar, and Versa agrees with him. She invites him to imagine for himself how he comes into this world to eat his food, and then some guys appear who are able to put him in. The girl assumes that the hero will definitely experience stress. Komuro agrees with her, and then she continues the story. She says that it seems to her that if you force them to reproduce in this way, then this state of chaos will be transmitted from parents to offspring. Then the girl notices that so far the locusts have not crossed the place where the magic sucker grows. But then she also adds that a sudden flood due to rain washed away these plants. Therefore, she concludes that without these obstacles, it will be much easier for insects to cross the border. Versa informs them that they will come from the south into the desert and go straight to the city. The hero realizes that he is not a scientist and does not understand much when such conversations begin. However, he assumes that the general essence seems to be clear to him. Then he asks the girl to explain this to Riddle and the others, since he is unlikely to be able to, and she realizes that she has no choice, after which she gives him a very cold look. Suddenly, the hero screams about why she immediately refuses, but she explains that she meant that she would be nervous. Komuro notices that she explained everything to him so calmly, and the girl replies that this is because they have been communicating for a long time. Then the hero suggests that she make some notes or instructions in case he gives everything to Riddle when the work is done, and the girl decides that it is much easier this way. They begin the process of writing the instructions. After a while, Isle and the others come to them. She rejoices at Komuro's appearance, and he immediately praises them for their good work. Then the guys decide to have a snack, and the hero tells that yesterday he was treated to these sandwiches by the workers. They were really delicious, and so he decided to take them with him anyway so that he could share them with the team later. Suddenly, Isle decides to ask about how things are going in the city and how soon the locust invasion is going to happen. Suddenly, he is approached by Murmo and Sesu, who inform him that they also want to know. Then the hero decides that while everything is here, he can clarify everything at the same time, after which he begins his story. He says that the locust invasion will happen in a couple of days, and adds that he is completely sure of it. The hero then says that they have already seen omens since they first arrived in the city and began preparations for the invasion there. Then he also adds that Versa told him that if it rains, it could be a start. However, Komuro then realizes that if these clouds start moving north and reach the desert, they will need to prepare. He says that this swarm of insects reaches the size of several hundred to millions of hoppers that will come to the city one of these days, and the guys are a little horrified by this. Komuro then decides that they need to stop them. After that, he also informs that Riddle and the adventurers are also heading here and will be here soon with the wagons. They will bring barrels with a remedy to resist locusts. Then the hero tells that after a while that same night it happens, and those about whom the hero spoke arrive at the camp in the meadow. However, contrary to his expectations, no one wanted to rest, and everyone started piling tents. Then all the guys start unloading barrels of locust repellent, and the story shifts to the moment when morning comes. Komuro says that the next morning heavy rain came to the desert.